at this time introduce yourself to the board.
My name is Eady. I'm Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Gordon. I'm in my 32nd year of elected official.
And how are you employed?
I'm retired now.
And does the fact that Mayor Lue is the first African-American female mayor of the city of Gordon have any bearing on your participation in this lawsuit?
Oh, no, sir. You know, I've been on council for, like I said, almost 32 years. When I went on council, we had James Cole, who was an African-American. He was the first one elected. Since then, I've worked with him and Mr. William Sanders and Mr. Dinsley. You know, so typically for the past 20 years, we've had, you know, council that has been made up of 4 whites and 2 African-Americans the whole time, and we've always got along real good.
And how many mayors have you served under?
4 different ones.
And if you can remember back to when you were first elected to city council, did you receive any special training as a new council member?
No, sir, I did not. When I first started, I was elected in 1982. They did not have the newly elected officials law in place. In 2001, my term ran out, and I ran for mayor for Dr. Gardner stepped down. And Mayor Turner, you know, ran at the same time, and I lost to him in that election. I think he beat me about 40 votes, you know, as mayor. I had to wait 2 years to go back on, and after that 2 years, when I went back on in 2003, I was elected in 2003 again, started serving again. The new law had taken effect, so after that, I did go for newly elected official training.
And is that training required not just for city council members, newly elected city council members, but also for newly elected mayor?
Yes, sir, it is.
It's the same, is it the same training course?
Same training, you go through the same courses.
And as part of that training, did you receive instruction in the Open Meetings Act?
Yes, sir, that is a part of it.
What about the Open Records Act?
Open records, open meetings, how to run your meetings, you know, how to deal with people, your ethics in government type stuff. It's all covered in that, you know. They try to teach you about, you know, forums and stuff as that. We talked a lot about forums. The GMA, Georgia Municipal Association, they were formed around 40, 50 years ago, just so that they could help, you know, mayors and city council get trained. Even though it wasn't, you know, elected mayors and councilmen new training, they always had classes that you could go to. Some of the same classes that we have now, they've had them for the last 25 or 30 years. So there was no reason you wouldn't get any training if you wanted it, you know. All you had to do was sign up and go to it, you know. They offer them several times a year throughout the state.
And you mentioned quorums, the training you received in quorums, and I just want to take a slight divergence from where I really want to head and just ask you this. Prior to the Supreme Court's ruling in the case of WHIPPLE-LUE versus Eady, and at the time that you filed this lawsuit, was it your understanding, based on your 32 years on city council, that a quorum in Gordon, Georgia, could be comprised of 3 council members and the mayor?
Well, based on my knowledge of what had always happened, it takes 4 people to vote. Now, when the mayor and 3 council people were together, all of the training that we received through the GMA discourages that. They tell you to never get together as, you know, more than one-on-one. And when you do get together, you should not talk about city business anyway, you know, if you're 2 council people. And especially a quorum. Quorums change because of city charter language, you know. Our city charter does say the mayor is part of council, and that's where sometimes it gets a little confusing. It says the mayor is part of council. She's one of the 7 that makes up council. I think somebody may have misconstrued, you know, her as being part of council, and she is considered part of council. But she's the mayor as part of the council. It does take 4 council members to make a quorum to vote. But also, I knew at the time when I talked with your firm when we brought this lawsuit, I advised Ms. Anna Boyden at the time that committees were included in the new sunshine law. As of 2012, the Georgia legislature changed the sunshine law to say that all committees have to operate exactly the same as the city council does. Whatever their quorum is for a committee, they have to operate under the same standard. That changed in 2012, the legislature did that. So it could be a one-person committee. That's what we started off operating at for the last 25, 32 years that I've been there. We've always had one person, chairman, and we've never really had official council committee meetings or such stuff as that. What the chairman normally did, if we fielded questions from the public on whatever chairmanship we would be over, whether it's fire, police, road, street, if City Hall did not give the citizens a satisfactory answer, they would refer them to the chairman, and then we would deal with the public, trying to help, alleviate any problem. That's the same way the committee chairman always worked. If you did have a meeting, you were supposed to follow the procedures.
As part of being on the city council, going back to our discussion about training, do you go to yearly training?
I do 2 times a year. I go in January, towards the end of January, they have what's called Mayor's Day in Atlanta. And they typically have training sessions on Fridays, Saturdays, and sometimes on Tuesday after all the business is over. Then I go in June of each year, and we go to Savannah, which is the annual convention when all the cities and mayors get together. Well, it's in Savannah for the last several years. That's what they call their annual convention, and I do take training classes there.
And does the city of Gordon offer any funds for its council members?
Yes, sir, they pay for the training sessions, they do.
And typically, are you allowed to take your spouse and be reimbursed for that by the city?
Yes, sir, if you look at any of those applications for those training sessions, the GMA makes out that thing, and it has for the council person, you put your title down, whether it's council person or mayor pro tem, whatever you want to be classified as. The next line under it, it says spouse, guest, but the city of Gordon has always paid for the spouse if they won't go. It's been going on for, last 32 years or longer. Plus, there's a place on there for children. And at the time, when I started, I had 2 young children. They lived in the house with me. The city always paid for my children, they would list them on there, and they would go with them too, and they've always done that too.
And when you're at the conferences, how do you decide which training session you want to take?
The GMA has a list at the very beginning of the registration. They'll have probably as many as 8 to 10 different courses that you can pick and choose from. You have to put down first, second, and third choice usually, because some of the classes fill up fairly quick, so you may not always get your first choice. They may drop back to your second or your third choice. So if we fill out those applications to go to training, you just put down. The state of Georgia has several recommended classes that they say are mandatory. You have to take them, as you go along, and as you take those classes and build up so many hours, then you can start taking all these other, I guess what you would call like extracurricular classes.
And would some of those classes perhaps be in city finances?
Yes, they have city finances, taxes 101, municipal court, police, fire, rescue, almost anything that you can think of, investments, financial investments for the city, insurance programs, they cover all of these things.
And does the city of Gordon have a city attorney?
Yes, sir.
Who's the current city attorney?
Boone, Scott, and Boone.
And were they rendering those services to the city of Gordon? Well, have they rendered those services to the city of Gordon throughout your tenure on city council?
Almost all of it. When I came in office in 1983, the guy that was doing it then, Mr. Scott, who was part of Boone, Scott, and Boone, he had just passed away. And Mr. Boone had just started representing their firm there. And we had a new mayor who came in with me, and they decided that they wanted to change mayor's attorneys at that time. there was a new attorney who had just come to Gordon, and we hired him for about a 2-year period, you know. And after that, it went back to Boone, Scott, and Boone.
And does the city attorney for Gordon typically offer training and advice to council members and the mayor about compliance with the Open Meetings Act?
Certainly, any questions that I have, or any council member, or mayor, or city employee, especially the department heads, is covered in our city charter that we should, you know, confer with the lawyers.
And does the Gordon City Council follow some form of parliamentary procedure?
Yes, sir, we do. Basically, and this is what I always tell everybody, we go by the city charter. The city charter has pretty much all the different divisions of city government. They're basically the same as any government. We have an executive branch, which is the mayor. The administrative branch is the city council. We're the ones that make all the rules, policies, procedures. We're the ones that can make motions and pass motions and ordinances. Anything like that is up to the city council to do. Once we pass all of those laws, policies, procedures, whatever it might be, that's when the executive branch kicks in. Whoever's the mayor just makes sure that all of those things are followed, you know. And then you have a judicial branch, which we have a judge who comes in and does that.
And does the Gordon City Charter include any provisions on voting?
On voting, it does. As far as voting goes, it says that 4 council members have to vote to, you know, pass a motion, resolution, or anything else, you know. And it says in there also, under the mayor's section, when it talks about the mayor, it talks about when the mayor can vote. It says the mayor can vote only when there's a 3-3 tie. And then I think they referred to it a little bit earlier, what Mr. Kendall and I had a discussion on a year or so ago when we had a hearing about an officer being taken out. You know, if you were gonna get rid of an officer or something, then the mayor would be able to vote on that, whether there's a 3-3 tie or not. But it only includes an officer. It did not include, you know, a lawyer. Lawyer is covered under a completely different section in our city charter. It says that the lawyer is hired by city council and serves at the pleasure of city council.
And just for the purposes of the record, although we've talked about this at numerous hearings before, in the instance that the city council is voting and you have 3 council members vote in the affirmative on something and 2 council members vote in the negative on that subject and 1 council member abstained, does that result in a tie?
No, sir. In our city charter, as all city charters go, you either have to specify what rules that you follow when you are doing, like you're talking about parliamentary procedure. And our city charter says that we follow the Robert's Rules of Order. The Robert's Rules of Order form of, you know, parliamentary procedure does not count an abstention either way. It's not a yes vote or a no vote. It can't be counted.
And we talked earlier about the city council following Robert's Rules of Order, talked about training offered by the city attorney. Does Mr. Boone offer services to the city of Gordon on advice on how to follow the parliamentary procedure?
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, we have asked him on several occasions. You know, I've had to use point of order. You know, that is a Robert's Rule of Order parliamentary procedure. One time, the mayor would not put something on the agenda that I wanted to be put on there. And at the meeting, she handed me a piece of paper that her and Mr. Henry Thicklin had filled out and gave me the answers to the questions that I wanted to put on the agenda. So when that came up and she would not allow us to put them on the agenda, I asked for a point of order, and we had to get clarifications from our attorney what point of order meant. And it meant that you have to stop everything that you're doing right there and take a vote to see if it's going to be put on there. And when 4 people voted to put it on the agenda, it happened. And other times, there have been times when Mr. Boone tried to help us understand that a abstention did not count as a vote.
And do you know if Mr. Boone offered any advice or training to Mayor Lue prior for taking office about how to comply with the Open Meetings Act?
I would not have been in on the conversation myself, but I have seen different memos that have come from Mr. Boone's office over, you know, the last 2 years where typically when they write the mail note or any of us, they carbon copy it to everybody. They send it to City Hall and email it or either mail it to us, and it goes in our mailboxes and everybody gets the same thing. So most everything that he sends out, everybody sees the same thing. Well, yes, sir, I have seen times when he wrote, memos, if that's what you want to call it, offering his advice to any of the new city council members and the mayor.
Do you recall if the city council and the mayor were investigated by the state attorney general's office for violations of the Open Meetings Act in January, February of 2014?
That was along the time when there was so much turmoil going on, with the mayor having, what was going on, alluding to meetings, committee meetings, whatever you want to call them. City Hall typically closes at 5 o'clock every day. That typically stops all city business. Well, when the mayor and the new council people came in, they began to show up at City Hall at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. People in Gordon noticed those things. City Hall is only 1 block up from main town Gordon. It's right beside the fire station. It's right up the street from the Piggly Wiggly, right in front of the Baptist Church parking lot. There's 2 main streets that go right by City Hall. College Street, one of the most populated streets in the city, and then Ewan Street. So a lot of people go by there after 5 o'clock and they began to see the mayor's car, and they recognized the car, then the mayor's car. And they would see vehicles such as Mr. Reese's, Ms. Toll, and Ms. Whipple's car at City Hall at 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And especially after the keys were taken from Ms. Brown, people would actually park in the Baptist Church parking lot, and you could see inside City Hall through the windows when the windows was open, and you could see people walking in and out of the office there, at different times of night. So people wanted to know what was going on. Why were they down at that time of the night, especially after they had taken Ms. Brown's keys.
And did one of the assistant attorney generals named Stephen Ritter, did he offer to come down and offer further training and instruction on the Open Meetings Act?
He did come down, and it was not a mandatory meeting that all the council had to go to. He did come down and he asked for a few specific people to be at that meeting. I think the mayor, was one of them. And I saw some memos on this, it's not just Tuesday, there were memos put out that Mr. Smallwood, Mr. Reese, some of those who had signed those checks for Mr. Basket for the $10,000, even though the council had not voted to fund that, then that was when Mr. Ritter got involved, and we kept telling the mayor that we did not have a letter of engagement. And it says in the city charter that all contracts with, anybody that does business with the city of Gordon should turn their contract in, and we give it to our attorneys, and they approve it, and then they send it back to city council, and then we approve it after they have given their okay to it. And they typically call that a letter of engagement when it's a professional service. And we never did get one on Mr. Basket. I myself asked several times, and they told me that they were not going to give it out because there was an ongoing investigation. And I didn't know what kind of investigation they had. All I knew was what they was telling me, it was a forensic audit.
Well, going back to the investigation by the state attorney general's office, how many times has Mr. Ritter come down, do you know?
I think Mr. Ritter himself, and I'm not sure positive, but may have came more than one, but now the Attorney General's office has been down more than one time. Mr. Ritter transferred from the Attorney General's office, and he's moved over to the Ethics Commission, and a Mrs. Coangelo is in charge of the office up there now. She's the one that does most of their field work, and she's the first line of one that goes out. She has been down and talked to us and has sent out letters and, different times.
And did the city of Gordon, I'm not asking you to divulge anything that's confidential, that's improper as far as amounts or whatever the terms may be, but did the city of Gordon eventually have to reach a settlement agreement with the Attorney General's office due to the investigation?
Yes, sir, we did.
And was that someone reached to prevent them from filing suit?
That was based on the knowledge that we had, was if it did not take place, then they were going to pursue it further. So City of Gordon Council voted to accept the, plea that they gave to us so that we could avoid going to court with it.
And what were what's your understanding of the underlying contentions of the Attorney General's office that would have given rise to a lawsuit?
Judge, I'm gonna object to this. We getting again into some matters that have transpired in some other proceeding, and it's just simple hearsay. Be asking this witness what are allegations in some other lawsuit that we can't cross-examine whoever he's talking about, what are allegations on. If it was from the Attorney General, then he needs to bring the Attorney General in here and testify about what they investigated and why. But to ask him about what their investigation was about, I think is improper.
Well, I'm not asking about what the investigation's about. I'm asking, as a city council member who was directly involved in the negotiation of the settlement agreement, what were they settling? I mean, certainly he knows what claims they were settling. We've talked about EEOC compliance. Mr. Kendall, cross-examined Ms. Brown thoroughly about her EEOC complaints. I'm just curious what the factual basis, what his understanding of the city councilman is as to the factual basis of disputed claims that the city of Gordon chose to settle.
Those were allegations, and that would be hearsay. Yeah, just like in the complaint that they used to introduce earlier, through another witness, that was through a complaint that's got allegations in it, they're hearsay. And I need to know what he knows about what happened.
Right.
Not what he understood from somebody else was the basis of a lawsuit that they decided to settle. That could be what the lawyer told them, or what the other, all that would be hearsay, it would be inadmissible. Just to say that you got sued for so-and-so, and they allege so-and-so, that doesn't show anything. And he said we settled the claim, but if he started giving the facts, then unless he had personal knowledge of those facts, that's just allegations, and I don't think that's really not relevant, nor is it admissible as he said. But I need to know what he knows about violations that this mayor has done that he claims
Right.
violate the law or inappropriate that could cause me to lose his faith. That's what I'm gonna hear about.
I understand you. Let's talk about January 17th, 2014. You've heard, you're part of the case, you sat in the courtroom throughout the day, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've heard a lot said about January 17th, 2014, and I presume from what I've heard it was a Friday. Do you recall if it was a Friday?
Yes, sir. Pretty much, I do.
Tell me what transpired. What do you recall?
Okay. Around 6:15 or 6:30 on Friday evening on January the 17th, Ms. Heather Harvey, who is the deputy clerk, I received a phone call from her. She called me and told me, said, Mr. Eady, city clerk is down at City Hall with the mayor, Mr. Lue, Mr. Reeves, and Ms. Coles, and she said, at that time, she thought Ms. Whipple was in the meeting also. And Ms. Harvey told me she had to leave, and she was concerned about Ms. Brown being in the meeting with those down there by herself. So I immediately got in my vehicle. I only live a quarter of a mile from City Hall. I went down to City Hall. When I drove up, I could see the vehicles parked around. I went to the front door of City Hall to go in, and the door was locked. And so I kind of rattled the door just a little bit, and Ms. Toles came out of the mayor's office. You can see from the front door of City Hall, you can see the city council chambers, you can see in the hallway, and you can see the mayor's door. Well, Ms. Toles came out, and she motioned with her finger for me to go to the back door like that, kind of just pointing. And so, as I stepped away from the front door,
Yes, can we approach for a second?
Okay. released you from their subpoena. The defendant would now like to place you under subpoena, so I'm placing you under the court subpoena. So you're once again potentially witnesses, so you can, once again, you're under the rule of sequestration to leave the court. You have contact information for these, council members?
Yes, I do.
They'll let you know when to be here. You won't be today, so you can leave now if you want to. And then come back tomorrow morning unless they tell you when another time to come back. Thank you. As soon as this water was relatively fresh. Anybody know?
I didn't mind me. I think somebody brought
Oh,
up
it's
some
still
water.
got a little ice in it. Yeah, or you drink some out of a canister like that, the Manuel County, one time they've been there for months. Really, really sick. Oh, he's chicken. Go ahead, Councilman,
I can't recall where you were at.
I was,
Tell
at
us
the
about
front
yours.
door, I was at the front door, and I walked up to the front door was locked, I didn't know why they was inside, but the door was locked that time of night, it was after 6:30 on Friday night. So as I walked from the front door around the corner of the building to the back door where Miss told me to go to, I got on the phone and I did call the Gordon Police Department. I told them I'd like for them to come up there and just be on standby because I did not know what was going on at City Hall. And I expected if I go in City Hall at that time and, you know, make a confrontation, ask the mayor and them what's going on, there may be some trouble. So I did call the Gordon Police Department. I didn't wait for them to get there. I went on to the back door. Miss Toad opened the door. When she opened the door, I asked Miss Toad, I said, Miss Toad, what's going on down here? She said, you'll have to go ask the mayor. So I go up the hallway and I knocked on the mayor's door and I asked him, could I come in? When I walked in, the scenario was the mayor was sitting behind her desk in her mayor's chair. Mr. Reeves was sitting right next to her. Ms. Brown was sitting on the very end of the desk in a chair, and she had probably 2 or 3 big stacks of envelopes, you know, in front of her. And I later found out that those were, you know, bills that they were discussing, you know. And Mr. Lue, Mr. Basil Lue, he was in a chair sitting behind me, and Ms. Toles was in a chair behind him. So when I came in, I remained standing. I wasn't planning on being that long. All I wanted to know was what was going on at that meeting, you know, 6:30 on Friday night. So when I started talking, the mayor, you know, started giving me some, you know, kind of feedback that, don't come in here, you know, asking these kind of questions over me. I want you to sit down if you're going to talk to me. Don't talk to me standing up. I want you to sit down. I said, I'm going to be here just for a minute. Please, just let me find out what's going on. So Mr. Reeves spoke up a few minutes later, and he said that, Mr. Eady, this might be because of me. He said, we asked Ms. Brown to get with us so that we could discuss some of these bills that need to be paid. And I had a doctor's appointment. I was late getting back, so we asked Ms. Brown to stay and meet with us here in this meeting. And so I said, well, so y'all are going over bills that got to be paid? I said, that's the city clerk's job, pretty much, you know. I said, we shouldn't have to have anything to do with that. Those are bills that need to be paid. And they said, well, we've been told we just didn't have enough money. We're trying to figure out which bills need to be paid first. So to me, that's a financial city discussion, you know, right then. Now, as the meeting and it progressed a little further along, the mayor really got, you know, a little bit upset, I guess, because I had come down there and started questioning. One of her favorite sayings is that I'm the chief executive officer, I'm the CEO, I can do what I want. My answer each time when she would say that is, no ma'am, you cannot, you have to go by the city charter. And when I said city charter, she kind of went off on that. Nobody has given me a city charter yet. I have done asked for the city charter, I've done asked the city clerk, I've done asked Joe Boone, Lawyer Boone and them, and nobody has given me a city charter. And I said, well, Mayor Lue, I knew at one time there was a city charter that stays in this office. This is the mayor's office. I said, there should be a copy of the city charter that's in here. And she turned around and picked up a big book and kinda looked at it, but it was not the city charter, it was some kind of a big book that had something to do with the CDBG grants that was going on at the time or something, but it wasn't the city charter. I'm not sure whether the mayor understood that when she got those books from the city clerk and from Joe Boone, when you first look at the book, if y'all may have had one, if you look at it, it says the city code, you know, on it. And you have to open the book up and look at the index, and it'll show you which page to go to for the city charter. The city charter is basically the very first part of that code that's in that book. And then it goes into all the different codes and then all the different ordinances the city has. Now, I don't know if that's what was throwing off, whether she hadn't looked at it or what. But she kept saying that she never got a city charter. Now, I won't go ahead, but just on what happened that night. I was there, and as I got there, what was just a few minutes later, the door, somebody knocked on the back door, just told again, went to the door to let them in, the back door of City Hall, and Mr. Freddie Dinsley, one of the police officers, came in with him. They walked up the hall, came into City Hall chambers, and there, at that time, it was Ms. Toles, Mr. Reeves, myself, and Mr. Dinsley. Just a matter of just a minute or two later, the door knocked again, Ms. Toles went to the door again, and she let Mr. Smallwood in. So when Mr. Smallwood came in, that was 5 council people in the room at the time. Ms. Whipple was not there when I got there. I think she had been there, but she had left. When I got in there, there was 3 of us. Mr. Dinsley got there was 4. Mr. Smallwood got there was 5. I did make a statement to them. I'm stopping right now, I'm not talking anymore. There are 5 council people here, that's more than a quorum, and I'm leaving. I said, you know, and Mr. Dinsley got up and walked out, and we left, Mr. Smallwood in there. Now, how long they stayed, I'm not sure. Ms. Brown did say they kept until about 9 o'clock that night.
And both Ms. Brown and Councilman Dinsley said at one point that all 6 city council people were there at one time.
That is not my recollection.
Okay.
That's not my recollection. Not all 6. I think Ms. Brooker was there earlier, and she had left.
You talked earlier about the committee structure within the city council of Gordon. When the mayor was when she first took office in January of 2014, did she have single member committees?
All we had was what they called the chairman of each committee. And it's the mayor's responsibility to appoint those chairmen. And she did, you know, one of the early meetings on them, she appointed Ms. Toles over the police department. I was over the fire department. Mr. Reeves was over the financial department. Mr. Dinsley, I think, was over sanitation. And maybe Ms. Whipple, she was over the streets. And I'm not sure about Mr. Smallwood, if he was, you know, appointed to one or not there. By the chart, I think there's only 5 different committees, and typically the extra person they designate, you know, is just kind of a go-between, you know.
And on February 3rd, 2014, did the mayor restructure the committees?
Yes, after it being brought to her attention that anytime more than, you know, 1 or 2 people got together in City Hall after I would have started whatever they were doing. You know, I didn't know what they were doing, but I do know when they got the keys from Ms. Brown, they were going through the files, you know, looking for whatever, I don't know. But, you know, the attorney, you know, brought it up that anytime you were together with just one person and you were talking to city business, you were violating the, you know, sunshine law. He had told us that they changed in 2012. This is what it says.
And who sat on the finance committee once the committee was expanded?
I am not sure who all did. There was a lot of reaction as she began to try to appoint 2- and 3-person committees. There had been so much turmoil about signing checks and about being on the committees. Several of us turned down any of the you know, committee jobs. I did not want to serve on anything except my fire committee that I had been appointed to, and several of the other council members made the same statement. So from that day on, there may have been a committee that had maybe Ms. Whipple, Ms. Toles, and Mr. Smallwood on it, but Mr. Densley and myself, we just wanted to stay on just one committee. We told them we didn't want to, serve on any other committee. I'm sure the minutes would reflect exactly what those appointments were, but I could not say off the top of my head how they, came out.
Okay, so those would probably be in the February 3rd, 2014 council meeting.
If that's when the appointments were made, yes, sir.
Okay. At some point during March or April of 2014, Gordon's insurance policy with the Georgia Municipal Association was canceled. What do you know about that?
Yes, sir. As already had been mentioned in this court, there were 4 of our city employees who filed EEOC complaints. And in those 4 complaints, when they started coming in and getting information, they sent down someone from the EEOC office, and they did a lot of interviews. They talked with a lot of different people at City Hall. And pretty much the guy that came down, the one that did the interviews, he did it one-on-one. And he interviewed people, and at the end of the investigation, GERMA, which is the Georgia Interlocal, Risk Management Agency that all the cities, just about all the cities and counties in the state of Georgia use for their liability coverage and insurance coverage. They are, it's a more or less a self-insurance program in the state of Georgia. We all put money in it according to, your size and how many people you have. But anyway, they were the ones in charge of the EEOC settlement at that time. They settled up without anything from us. We didn't have to do anything. They took it on their own. And once they did the investigation, they paid out the money out of GERMA. And as soon as that was over, the policy was coming due again somewhere in March or April. The policy, was terminated and you had to renew it at that time of year. They wrote us a letter telling us that they would not insure us anymore under GERMA, that we was too high risk, that there was too much misfunction going on with the mayor and the council and all the things that were going on in the city of Gordon. That they were going to drop us, and they recommended that we go out and find some other insurance at that time.
And has the city of Gordon been able to find an alternative insurance plan?
We contacted one of the local insurance agencies, Mixon's Insurance in Gordon. He was able to find us insurance to cover our vehicles, property, such stuff as that, But there's no liability company in the state of the United States right now that would insure us. The only one that did gave us such a high premium and such a low return on it. It was like a $40,000 or $50,000 a year premium is what they wanted. And they wasn't gonna pay out but $50,000. So you'd be better off keeping money in your pocket and take the chance, and that's what we did. We do not have liability coverage now. We have reached out and tried to get it from other places in the United States, and we have been told there are only 3 or 4 that actually write that type of coverage, and all of them know the city of Gordon's problem, so we do not have public liability coverage now.
When you talk about public liability coverage, I'm not extremely knowledgeable about insurance. Is that coverage, for instance, if one of your police officers or fireman is in a wreck while on duty?
Wrecks, no. Liability would be more personal type, is if you said that I illegally arrested you, or one of my firemen did something while they were at somebody's house and there was a public liability type problem, then that's when that public liability kicks in. We do have coverage on personal people themselves and their vehicles, and they would cover it. But if a police officer were to be sued for false arrest, that money comes out of our pocket. The attorney fees, the settlement, whatever. And that's where we at now. That's what causes so much problem in the city of Gordon. We've had so many different other things that have come up, and it has cost us in lawyers' fees and settlements in the past 2 years.
Do you recall the February 17th, 2014 city council meeting when the contract or the discussion about retaining the bill basket occurred?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
Tell the court about that discussion and what transpired.
The going back just a little bit, originally, when they first made the motion to hire an auditor, that was the terminology that was used. It was just to hire an auditor. And I did vote against hiring an auditor because we had just got through auditing the city of Gordon, you know, and I thought it was just foolish to spend any extra money. But there was 45 council people that did vote to hire an auditor. Well, right after that, we had another meeting soon after, and it turned in from a regular audit to a forensic audit. And so when that forensic audit came up, that's when the mayor and them said that they had a man in mind, Mr. Basquiat, who would come in and do a forensic audit. And so that's what started it there, you know, as it moved forward, you know, going with the forensic audit. They voted to hire Mr. Basquiat. But then, after that, there was no letter of engagement ever presented to city council for us to vote on his letter of engagement after the attorneys, after the attorneys checked out his letter of engagement. That's when the question started coming up is how he could be working for the city of Gordon, and we did not have a legal letter of engagement that had been looked over by our attorneys. So, you know, to me, he had not been hired. I mean, even though they voted to hire Mr. Basquiat, he never did fulfill his obligation of turning in a engagement letter.
Were there any funds that are allocated to pay him?
No, sir. At the time the mayor came in, our year runs out at the end of September and we begin in October. So the previous mayor and council had already approved the budget for 2013-2014, which went through 2014 up to September. There was no money appropriated in that budget for a forensic audit. And the city charter of the city of Gordon states that no money can be spent if it's not in the budget unless it's done through the city council. We're the appropriation mechanism in the city of Gordon only. The mayor cannot spend any money on her own as she tried to do on the administrative part. She's executive. She is not any part of the administrative, you know, so she doesn't have any power to spend money that's not in the budget. The city clerk, as she stated earlier, we've never had to approve bills before because all bills are built into our budget. We know from one year to the next, pretty close to what all the bills are going to be. You may not know whether gas is going up from $3 to $4 a gallon. You know, you may run over some on your budget, whether the policemen stay on the road more or what, you know, whatever. But we put enough money in the budget to cover all of our bills, you know, and the city council does not have to come back and make any changes unless it's not in the budget. Then it's presented to us, and then we have to find the money. That's what the state law says that, Your Honor. It's not just our city charter. No city can operate unless you have a balanced budget. You have to be able to provide the money to cover those costs.
And to your knowledge, did the city council ever approve an engagement letter or a fee contract or otherwise allocate funds to pay Bill Basket?
No, sir.
And did he nonetheless come to Gordon and begin some sort of investigation or audit process?
Yes, sir, he did come up. Matter of fact, the day that the EEOC people came to Gordon, they asked us to do a mediation process. And that makes it a lot easier than going to court. They wanted us to get together. So all the city council met at the old City Hall Annex. Our lawyers, Mr. Boone, Mr. Green was there. The people from the EEOC had lawyers that were there. And we had been advised that we would probably be better off to hire a lawyer who was trained in doing mediation. And we picked a lawyer that was given to us by several different people. And I can't remember his name, Mr. Tom Richardson. I think the city decided that they would hire him to engage us in the mediation process. So the very day that we met, all of us met together to do that mediation, Mr. Bill Baskett came into City Hall, and Mr. Reeves would not even come over there with us. He stayed at City Hall because Ms. Brown and Ms. Harvey, everybody had to come over here to be involved in the mediation process. That was the very day that Mr. Baskett came in.
Do you know, if the mayor ever, or if the city ever provided Mr. Baskett with a $10,000 retainer fee?
Yes, sir, I did see, the check, after the fact, and a copy of it, we never approved it, but he did get paid a $10,000 retainer fee, and from what I'm saying, it was illegal for him to have that $10,000.
And do you know if that $10,000 check was written by Juana Brown at the mayor's instructions?
Yes, we all had memos, just as you presented already. Each one of us had a memo that reflected that she had been instructed to sign them. Mr. Reese had actually filled out a memo, handwritten, that he wrote out himself, saying that he was telling Ms. Brown to sign that check on the advice of Mayor WHIPPLE-LUE. And Mr. Reese signed it, telling Ms. Brown to go ahead and sign that check for $10,000.
And exhibit 37, which is already in evidence, is a two-page exhibit. Is the second page of that exhibit the handwritten note from Councilman Reeves?
Yes, sir, that's the exact one that I remember.
And do you know if Councilman Reese and Councilman Smallwood and the mayor met on February 20th to discuss the retention of Bill Baskett?
If this letter is dated the 20th, and that's my recollection, and what I'm reading here, yes, they would have all had to be together because, they talked about what they were gonna do, and they were gonna make Ms. Brown write the check that day.
And on February 20th, 2014, 17 days after committee assignments were given out, was the finance committee comprised of Tommy Smallwood, Terry Reese, and Mayor Marion WHIPPLE-LUE?
And I said, I'm not positive who were on those. They probably did try to keep Mr. Smallwood involved in some of it because Mr. Smallwood was one of those who was on the signature signing check.
So you would defer to the February 3rd minutes?
Yes, sir. That's right, sure.
And do you know if this unapproved expenditure, do you know if the monies for that expenditure were actually transferred from the Georgia One Fund to the general fund to pay Mr. Baskett?
From what I understand, yes, sir, there was a note or memo or whatever, given to Ms. Brown to take care of that also.
And while we're talking about the Georgia, is it the Georgia Fund One or the Georgia One Fund? I always get it wrong.
I'm not positive. I've heard it both ways.
Okay.
I don't see it enough to, say for sure. I think it's Georgia Fund One, maybe.
I think so. So this is going to jump far ahead on the story, and we'll come back and talk about Ronnie Jones and some other things. But while we're talking about the Georgia Fund One, tell me what happened on January 5th, 2015 at the council meeting.
I think you're alluding to the fact that we were going to try to move some money, $150,000. There was some discussion back and forth whether it should be $100,000, $150,000, and this and that and the other. But we knew that at that time of year, right after the beginning of the year, January, that is one of the vulnerable times we find ourselves with very little funds coming in. We only get property taxes at the beginning of February. Property taxes, banking tax, and Georgia franchise fee are the three largest checks that we get. We depend on those to help pay our larger bills. The city usually depends on sales tax revenues that come in to help us make our monthly pay periods. And that's been really hard to do because the economy went bad in 2008. Our sales tax fell from like 37 to 38,000 down to sometimes 20 or 21,000. Got almost cut half in two. So at that time, it was coming close to payroll time, and we discussed moving $150,000. And so, as I said earlier, you have to have all of these things in your budget, you know, if it's not in the budget, the only people that can make an appropriation change is city council. And city council, myself, Mr. Tinsley, and, Mr. Smallwood, were going to try to move that money. At that time, Mr. Reeves had already passed away, so we only had 5 council people. And so if you didn't get Ms. Toll or Ms. Whipple to help with a 4th vote, everything was a dead issue. As we began to vote that particular night, the 3 that I mentioned just now, myself, Mr. Dennis, and Mr. Smallwood, we had voted, and it got down to Ms. Whipple, and Ms. Whipple originally was going to vote for it too, but after she said that she was going to vote, then the mayor started asking the question, are you really going to do that? And then Ms. Whipple changed her vote to an abstention. So the vote died that night, right then, it died. You could not move the money because city council did not approve it after she changed her vote.
And then, at the January 16, 2015 meeting, what did you learn about this issue of this funding?
Well, we were going to bring it up again and put it on the agenda that night, but the mayor just went ahead and said, there's no need to, I've already moved that money. And I said, what money? I said, where did you get the money? I did it out of the One Georgia Fund. I went ahead and took $150,000 and moved it on my administrative move. And there was a big discussion that, you know, well, Mayor, you can't do that. You know, we told her that, the lawyers told her that, and Ms. Brown told her that. And she said, I've been advised by somebody at the state level that I could do that. And then we got into discussion about the resolution and, you know, her being able to sign, and we all agreed. There's no doubt in my mind that we did give her the authority by that resolution, but it does not say she can move money anytime. Only people that can move the money and make a new appropriation is city council. That's by the charter.
When you talk about the resolution, I'm going to show you it's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1 and already admitted into evidence. Is that the resolution you're referring to?
Yes, sir. This is it, sir. Yes, sir.
And is it your understanding that under that resolution, the mayor is authorized to transfer funds as essentially as a signatory on the account, but she has to have further approval of the amount to transfer, withdraw, or invest in the Georgia Fund 1?
Yes, sir. All it says is that this gives them the, you know, authority to do it. On this particular one is, Mary Ann WHIPPLE-LUE and Terry Reeves are the 2 that's listed on this particular one, you know.
Okay.
But it doesn't say that they can do it any time, it's just that they are authorized to do it. That's what the resolution is about.
And does that resolution authorize the mayor to make changes in the appropriations contained in the current city operating budget?
No, sir. As I stated before, only city council can make changes in the appropriation. Once the budget has been submitted and approved, we're the only ones that can do that. And for the first year that the mayor was in, we was about 6 or 8 months late coming up with a budget. We didn't even have a budget. Our budget is supposed to be ready before October 1st so that you can discuss it and hash out all your numbers, talk with the auditors, talk with everybody that's involved, and then, you know, pass the budget before October comes in so that you'll have your budget in place. We did not get a budget until on up in probably February or March of 2015. So we didn't even have a budget.
Whose responsibility is it in Gordon typically to prepare,
The mayor,
just for the record, prepare the budget?
to prepare the budget.
And let's go back now to, I'm gonna get the date right, to May 21st, 2014. Do you recall the city council meeting that night, the discussion about Joe Boone?
Yes, sir, pretty much, yes, sir.
Tell the court what happened in that discussion and any votes resulting therefrom.
Well, pretty much early on in the meeting, you know, there was an agenda item that was on the agenda that night to discuss the attorney. So when it came down to that particular item on the agenda to discuss the attorney, Mr. Reeves pretty much just took it right off the bat and said that we've been talking about this and that he was going to make a motion that we fire Joe Boone. And so we talked about it in a few minutes, you know, that if city council really decided to do that, a full quorum of city council did it, then, you know, you could get rid of Mr. Boone. It was all discussed, and Mr. Boone and him even joined in the conversation about that. But then when it came down to a vote, I think Mr. Reese made the motion. I'm not sure if it was Ms. Whipple or Ms. Toll, one of those two seconded the motion. There was some more discussion as we talked about it, and then when it went into the vote, it came down the table. Ms. Whipple, Ms. Toll, Mr. Reese all voted for the motion. Mr. Smallwood and Mr. Densley voted no, and I voted abstention. And just as soon as I did, I looked over against the wall. Mr. Jones, Ronnie Jones, was standing over against the city council wall with Mr. Kendall, and the mayor then kind of more or less looked over at Mr. Kendall and Mr. Jones, and the mayor said, I've been advised that I can vote anyway. And we said, no, you can't vote. This is an abstention. It doesn't count. I've been told that I can vote, and I'm going to vote yes to get rid of Mr. Boone. Then we went into some discussion about that not being legal right then at that time. And then after we had all of that discussion, you know, and the minutes reflect all, I can't remember everything, but just giving you the highlights. And then after that, they said, well, sir, what are we gonna do about a new attorney? And then that's when Mr. Reese said, well, I make a motion that we give the mayor the authority to, you know, go out and hire another attorney. And somebody said, well, do you know somebody? And she talked to Ms. Whipple, and she said, yeah, I think I got somebody in mind. She didn't name Mr. Jones in that meeting that night. But Mr. Jones was standing in the city hall chambers with Mr. Kendall that night. And so they went through the same motion, you know. One made the motion, one seconded it, went through the vote, came down to be 3-2, and I abstained again. And that's when the mayor voted a second time to break the tie. And they said, okay, said, we give you the authority to go out and hire an attorney. When do you think you can do that? Probably within a day or so. You know, and that's where it was left at right then. And it went from there all the way to the Supreme Court, you know, to settle it up later.
You mean in the quo warranto suit?
Well,
Boone
well,
versus-
Orange though, so it went.
Or Jones versus Boone?
There you go, and then they forwarded it on.
And was there a period of time at which both Mr. Jones and Mr. Boone attended city council meetings?
Yes, sir, there were several times. Matter of fact, I think about the first time Mr. Jones showed up was the month of June when Judge Reeves had taken the mayor out on a temporary restraining order, TRO. We had a meeting that night, and if we showed up to city council meeting that night, Mr. Jones came walking up, you know, and told me who he was and that he was there for the meeting, and that was when it started. So it was around the first Monday in June when he first showed up, and from June and July, while the mayor was out, Ms. Whipple and Ms. Toll and Mr. Reese refused to come to the city council meeting, so we couldn't have a quorum to have a city council meeting. And so we just came each time to wait and see if enough people showed up to have a meeting, but only one, the first meeting that night when Ms. Jones came, Ms. Whipple did come, and we had 4 people, so we did have enough to have a quorum that one night. But from that point on, and then when Ms. WHIPPLE-LUE, Mayor WHIPPLE-LUE came back in after July and started back, yeah, Mr. Jones would be sitting behind her, right beside her, you know, giving her advice, and Mr. Boone and his firm would be sitting over there. And there were several times when we said that, you know, and it should reflect in the minutes, and some of those that I said myself, Mr. Jones, I do not consider you as the legal attorney. I feel like Mr. Boone and them are 2 months that I was there, filling in as the mayor pro tem for the mayor, I used, Mr. Boone and them for most of my advice, and Mr. Jones continued to try to do some work behind the scenes with some of the other council members, and he did eventually send a bill in for $5,000 some odd dollars, I think, you know, but we never did pay it.
And did you eventually learn, while you were serving as the acting mayor, that Mayor Lou had actually signed an engagement letter with Mr. Jones on or about April 1st, 2014?
Well, what happened on that is, after the mayor was taken out of office, we started getting several different open record requests from different people. They wanted to, we had her phone that belonged to the city, she had to turn it in. We got open record requests to see what phone numbers and what different things was on there. And there was an open record request turned in to see what information was on the computer. The computer was in the mayor's office, but it was purchased by the city, it belonged to the city. She did have a password on it, and I myself did not know how to get into it and everything, but there's an IT guy who works for the city of Gordon, and we asked him if it was possible to get into the computer without a password, and he said yes, if he had something to show legally that he could do so. So we showed an open record request that I was acting as the mayor at that time. The mayor was out on a temporary restraining order, and that I was asking him to see if he could do that, and I advised him, you know, if he needed to, he could talk to the lawyers or the police department. So in a few days, he came back and said that yes, he could do that. And it didn't take him just a few minutes. He opened the computer up and, you know, printed out everything that was on it, you know, that was on that computer. From emails and stuff like that and different things, Microsoft letters and all different kind of correspondence. There was some that I, right off the top of my head, I do remember seeing that one about Mr. Jones and when it was dated. Saw one that Mr. Henry Fickman had written to the mayor advising her to do certain things when she came in the office, you know. I mean, there were several different things on there that, you know, I didn't do it myself. You know, the IT guy did it, and that was it. When the mayor came back, he didn't leave her same password, and so she couldn't get back on it. She said it had been hacked. And so she ordered a brand new computer and printer system and everything at that time. That computer's sitting in the Gordon Police Department right now.
When you mentioned Henry Ficklen a couple times, who is Henry Ficklen?
I've known Mr. Ficklen for many years. He was, like myself, he was on a city council over in Macon for several years, and he and I have known each other over the years, meeting up at different meetings such as we have. But on several occasions, right after the mayor came into office, Mr. Ficklen started showing up, and he was pretty easy to recognize his car because he had a big old Cadillac most times when he came in, you know. And so several of the times when I'd see his car down there, I would make it a point to go by and just, you know, go in, maybe talk to him, see what was going on. And one time I went in, the mayor and her husband had caused a lot of problems with some of the jobs that we had going on in the city. We had a CDBG grant that we had got to upgrade our sewage. We also had voted in October and November, after our budget had went into effect, to do some rehab on our old jail. Our old jail was built in 1911, I believe it was. You know, it's pretty close to 100 years old. Some of the mortar was coming out. There are only a few people in the state of Georgia who can do the work that it takes. We had hired a guy to do that. We had hired him to do some work down at the city cemetery to put up some columns and put a fence up. We had voted on all of those things before the Mayor Lou had come in. We already had the bids and we had already voted to do those things. Well, when Mr. Lou came in, they said he was calling himself the chief of staff. He was the mayor's chief of staff. That was the word that got back to everybody. Matter of fact, you know, they did some interviews with him. But anyway, there were just so many things going on, you know, at that particular time that was causing problems, you know. So, ask me the question again, let me give you a direct answer.
I think we got it. As I recall, the first council meeting you presided at as the acting mayor was on June 2nd, 2014. And if I recall correctly, were you on vacation the week before that?
I
Florida?
I was on vacation, yes.
And when you were returning from vacation that week before, did you get any sort of urgent calls from the city of Gordon?
I did, most of the people in Gordon, a lot of the people have my phone number. I have given permission to the city clerks to give out my cell phone number. I feel like I'm, elected position that I'm in, and I should be available to anybody, so they can call my home. I'm in the book. They can call my cell phone. I got a call as I was coming up the interstate, I-75, I found it, somewhere just this side of South Georgia. I got a call from G.B.R, who was really upset. I could tell by the sound of her voice that something was going on. And she began to explain to me that somebody was over there at the Better Hometown building, which belonged to the city of Gordon, but we turned it over to the Better Hometown group. They actually call it Main Street Gordon now, but everybody still pretty much refers to it as the Better Hometown group. Well, the mayor did not have a key to get into that office, and she had called the locksmith to go to that building. And when they got down there, several other people started showing up. Mr. Roy Mixon, who's part of the hometown, Miss Miriam Brown, and they were going to give the guy a key, to get in and unlock the lock and then change the lock. Well, he drilled it out. He drilled all the front door and the back door. He drilled them out, swapped locks. They left from the Better Hometown building, and that took them probably an hour or so to do. And as soon as they called and told me that they were headed over to the depot, I sped up, a little bit faster. When I got home, I got there just in time to get to the Gordon Depot to pull up. And I made a phone call to our police department. I said, y'all please go over there and see if you can talk to me and them out of, changing all these locks until we can see what's going on. Only city council can really make those decisions. Those buildings are public property. The mayor does not have any control over those things. Only city council can, authorize anybody to use them and by, some type of agreement, lease agreement or just a agreement. But when I got there, the mayor and Miss Toad were standing out there with the locksmith, and he had a drill in his hand, and Mr. Roy Mixon had a key in his hand. And he was trying to tell the guy that said, don't tear up those old doors, don't take a chance to tear them up. I'll give you a key. And the mayor told the guy to go ahead and do what I told you to do, drill them out. And he did. He drilled the door locks out, put new locks in it, and when we left there that day, none of the Better Hometown people had a key to get in their building, and nobody had a key to get back in the depot at that time except, I guess, the mayor.
Now, Better Hometown, they're in a public building, you said, but do they have their own private property that they house in that
Oh,
building?
yes, they do. We give them the permission and authority to use that building. It's what we call the Discovery Center. They have old records and things, old pictures, and even some of their own personal stuff. Mr. Bruce Daniels was the director of the Better Hometown at that particular time. So I'm sure he had, some of his personal, paperwork and different things that he was keeping in there,
And did the Better Hometown have a executive director of any sort at that time?
Mr. Bruce Daniels, he was part-time director of it, yes, sir.
And after this episode, did he continue in his employment or his volunteer capacity, or did he
Well,
resign?
That was another one of those things when all of the volunteer groups started to drop out of all the things that we had going on. It was hard to keep people interested in doing volunteer work. Mr. Bruce Daniels was the only one that got paid, and he was paid to do that because the grants that we got to redo that building, the state of Georgia says that you have to have at least a part-time director in order to get these grants and to stay accredited with the state of Georgia for these Better Hometown programs or the Main Street program. So the city of Gordon had a director almost ever since the group was formed. Before Mr. Bruce Daniels, I think it was Mr. Ryan Mitchener, and then before him it was Ms. Carol Seal. So I know we've had at least 3 different part-time directors over the years, and they're budgeted, we pay them 20 hours a week basically to do their work.
Do you recall on your way back from Florida, prior to the excitement at the depot consuming your activities, do you recall if the mayor called you about the fuel policy for the police department and fire department?
Yes, she did. She called me and she made a statement that she was going to put a lock on the gas pumps. And the only people that would be able to get in there would be her or either Melvin Lawrence, I think she may have told me, or Melvin. But the gas pumps are locked up behind the fence, and we have a key, it's locked already. And we have a log, when we go to put gas or diesel fuel in our fire truck, we go to the police station and we get a key from the police department. And inside the little container that's with the key is a gas log. We go down and fill out the gas log, put fuel, the gas in whatever it is. The police do the same thing. They keep up with their gas as they put it in their car. Well, she said the only time she told me she was going to take and change the lock, and that we wouldn't be able to get gas except, during the week time, while they were there.
I want to show you what I've marked as Exhibit 100. Take a look at this document. Were you one of the recipients of this letter or memorandum?
I did see it, yes, sir. As I said, if we get back in City Hall, I always look in my box and everything. Now, I'm not listed on.
Take one more look.
Right. Terry Eady Fire Department, yes, sir, I see it.
And do you recall seeing this document when it came through?
Well, I didn't see it when she first did it, but, later on,
Right.
Like
You were
your-
on vacation, but is this a fair and accurate copy of the document you received
yes, sir.
in your capacity as chairman of the fire department? We would offer Exhibit 100.
Okay.
And Councilman Eady, is this the new gas station procedure that you described?
Yes, sir, it is, it was completely different, and as I've said this before, the mayor does not have the authority by the city charter to make administrative changes, that's what that would have been. It's a policy and a procedure, and the only people that can do that is city council.
And you were the council member that chaired the fire,
Yes,
the
sir.
fire committee or fire
Fire
department?
committee,
And were you consulted about this change in the fuel policy prior to its implementation?
no, sir.
You know, Chief Paul of the police department was consulted?
I do not for sure, but from the conversation I had with him, I don't think he was informed of, or asked about it until it was all done and over.
Okay. We've talked a lot about, Open Meetings Act violations and the way meetings are run. Are citizens allowed to speak at the city council meetings?
The only time they are allowed to do it now is after several people started trying to get on the agenda. We finally talked the mayor into trying to set up some type of a procedure so that people could come to City Hall. And we've always had a procedure, always. You've got to provide people with an opportunity to speak to council. And the only time we get together, the group that we can actually act on anything is at a regular city council meeting. So typically, the mayor and City Hall receive someone's request to be put on the agenda. And used to, the mayor would ask him to come in and talk to him. This is the previous mayor, Mr. Turner. He would ask for him to come in and talk to him. Sometimes the mayor himself would be able to resolve the issue if it was just something that somebody was upset about, and then they never would have to come. But if they wanted to come, there was a procedure that if you came to City Hall and told them that you wanted to be on the agenda, and I can't say for sure exactly what it was. It used to be if you did it before 4 or 5 o'clock on Thursday, before the agenda was put out on Friday, then you would be allowed to speak. And since Mayor WHIPPLE-LUE came in, some of those policies and procedures have changed,
Has she ever had anybody arrested? Have you ever seen her have anyone arrested at a city council meeting for speaking out of turn?
Yes, sir, we had a occasion, you know, with, Mrs. G.B.R, who is, pretty much the editor of the Wilkerson County Post, which is the local paper here in Wilkerson County. She comes to most of our meetings to, you know, observe, see what's going on, take notes and write. There was a occasion one night when something came up and she was trying to say something and the mayor told her, you know, I didn't give you permission to speak. If you keep on, I'm gonna have you taken out of, you know, and eventually the police officer came over and got her and she said, don't, you know, you're gonna have to, you know, make me leave. I'm not just gonna voluntarily leave. And they said, well, we're gonna make you leave, you know, that's what been asked to do. So, you know, they put handcuffs on and walked out the door.
And ultimately, did the city of Gordon settle a lawsuit with Miss Bailey resulting from her arrest?
Well, it was another one of those occasions where it never completely got to be a lawsuit in the actual court. She hired an attorney and, her attorney and our attorneys talked back and forth, exchanged, you know, material, and we talked about most of this in, executive session, so I'm not sure how much I can say here, you know, but yes, we did settle up a suit that was filed on that case.
And you testified at a prior hearing about the state of things in Gordon at that time. Are things, compared to that time period in 2014, have things calmed down politically in Gordon?
Well, in a way, yes, sir, a little bit. You know, everybody's still looking forward to the results of this trial today. It's been 2 years and 3 months trying to get to this point today, you know. The reason we took that route was that a recall effort, you have to follow a certain procedure, and whoever is going to be recalled has the right to go before a judge, such as Judge Reeves here, and protest if that is not a legitimate reason, and if he doesn't agree, or if he does, either way, it can be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court of Georgia before you can actually do the recall. That's the recall election law. So we decided to do this, you know, at the time, you know. I think this, with Judge Reeves and the TRO, and a lot of the things that have happened since the mayor came into office, you know, an election that, you know, refilled Mr. Reese's, where we had full votes that, you know, pretty much stuck together because we were trying to run the city of Gordon the way we thought it should be run. Things have settled down a little bit, and, you know, it seems to be a little bit better. But there's one thing that if I could, Mr. Kendall alluded to it. He said that this was based on race. That was typically straight from the mayor. The mayor made the comments when she first came into office that we did not try to help her because she was a black and a female. Now, each time she said that, we said, no ma'am, if you follow the procedures, follow the city charter, do what you're supposed to do, and you listen to the right people, then we won't have any problem. But now I'd like to go back and tell just one story like Mr. Gentry told about what happened that night on January the 17th. It pretty much set the stage for me from then until now. If you don't mind, I'd like to, you know, tell it. And we was having a discussion with the mayor that night, and she was talking about the city charter. She said, just look at my desk. There's nothing here. Nobody had a transition team to come in and help me make my transition into this office, you know. And this was her talking. And she said, it's been like this. For 140 years, blacks have been in bondage. Said, it's been like this. Black, white, black, white. I'm not exaggerating. My voice, she did it just like that. Now that caught me really, really by surprise. I never expected that out of Mayor WHIPPLE-LUE. I've known her pretty much all of her life, and I've never had any problems with her or, you know, anybody. But when she came to me, and I came in and she said that to me that night, that really got my attention, that it was racial, but it was not us, it was her. You know, that's the way I feel. And a lot of other people felt the same way.
Your motivations in being a plaintiff in this lawsuit, are they racially motivated?
No, sir.
Your Honor, I might have just a minute, so
Sure.
counsel. I think we might be at an end with, Mr. Eady for the day. That's all we have on the record, Your Honor.
Well, it's about 5:30, this might be a good stopping point, for the evening. I think I had initially said, that we will start at 10 today and start getting at 9 in the rest of the week. That's gonna work any large, terrible inconvenience on anybody other than me. And I'm with my law clerk, who had come to Swainsboro from Statesboro, before he can travel here, which is a little over an hour away. But, we're willing to do that, that won't be a problem. Everybody good with that? All right, we'll begin tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So make sure your witnesses know that although we came this morning at a different time, we're gonna start tomorrow at 9 o'clock. You're gonna still be on the stand for cross-examination. We'll be here at 9 o'clock. All right. Thank you very much. We will take a break today and be back here at 9 o'clock. Thank you all very much. Back up and have a seat.
January 17th meeting. You remember that?
Yes, sir, I was there, yes, sir.
Tell me again what happened when you arrived on the scene there at the city council building.
Okay. Going back and seeing what I did yesterday, when I got there around 6:30 on Friday night, on January the 17th, I saw several cars parked, and when I walked up where I parked my car in the front, I walked up to the front of the city hall building, the doors that you go in normally, and they were locked. I couldn't get through.
Let me ask you, what time was that?
6:30, I just said 6:30.
Okay, so the doors are normally locked at 5 o'clock, is that right?
On anything that takes place at City Hall, yes, sir, but when somebody's there at City Hall, you know, I would have expected the doors to be open so the public could get in, you know.
But it was after hours.
It was after hours, certainly was,
So why would you expect the doors to be open after 5 o'clock?
because there was something going on in City Hall.
But something that might be going on might not be for the public to be privy to. Is that true?
Typically, anytime something's going on at City Hall, the building should be unlocked.
By whose rule is that?
Or just general knowledge, you know, if you have something at City Hall, it should be unlocked. If business is going on in City Hall, the door should be unlocked,
Even after hours?
certainly after hours.
So if somebody's there working late into the evening on whatever project.
Oh, I wouldn't say if they was in there doing some work on their own, you know, that they would have to have it open, but if there was city business going on, it should have been unlocked.
No, I mean, if someone was there working on city business, reviewing notes, reviewing minutes, for whatever reason, if Tawana Brown was there working late, after 6 o'clock, after 5 o'clock, when the doors are normally closed, you would expect that she
No.
would be in that building
No, I
and the
would not.
doors would be open.
No, I would not expect, if she was in there by herself, I would expect her to keep herself protected by keeping the door locked.
So it depends on how many people in the building after 5 o'clock.
Yes, sir,
That determine
That's
whether or not
right. That's
the
what I would
doors
say.
should be open.
yes, sir.
And y'all need to do them at the court reporter,
Talk one at a time.
talk one at a time.
Sure, I can do that.
And, you wait, let him finish his question, and then you answer, and you wait, let him finish his answer before you ask the question. Thank you very much.
Now, you said you got there at 6:30,
Around 6:30,
around
yes, sir.
6:30, and the reason you came was why?
Miss Heather Harper, who was the deputy clerk at the time, she called me at my house around 6:15 or 6:20 that day. And she told me that she had left City Hall a little earlier, and when she left City Hall, she left Miss Brown down there with the mayor, Mr. Reeves, Mr. WHIPPLE-LUE, and Miss Barbara Toes, and they was all down there in the mayor's office, and she was a little bit concerned about Miss Brown's, you know, condition, how she would take it being down there with those people after hours, you know. She was concerned about her well-being.
Okay, Heather Harbor called you because she was concerned about Mrs. Brown's well-being.
That's what she told me, yes.
And what you think, do you know what the reason why she was
No,
concerned?
sir, I could not, I've just told you all that I know, what she told me.
Did she tell you that anybody threatened Mrs. Brown?
She did not tell me that anybody had threatened Miss Brown, not on the phone that night, no.
Did she tell you that anybody was holding Mrs. Brown against her will?
No, sir, of course she did not.
Okay. So you took off down there?
I went down there in my vehicle, I only live a quarter mile away, it didn't take me but about 3 minutes to get there, yes, I drove down there, just went to see what was going on.
Okay, and who did you call on your way down there?
I didn't call anybody on the way down there.
Okay, did you call anybody before you left your house?
No, sir, I did not,
Okay, and when you got there, who all was present at the building?
Well, when I got there, I didn't know who was present except Miss Barbara Toes. She was the only one that came to the door when I knocked on the front door to get in. Miss Barbara Toes came out of the mayor's office and walked close enough to the front doors to motion, you know, with her finger down the hall for me to go to the back door.
Okay, so she came to the back door.
She came to the back door and she unlocked the back door.
Okay, and when you went in, what happened?
When she opened the back door so that I could go in, I asked Miss Toes, Miss Toes, what's going on down here? she said, you'll have to go ask the mayor. And I said, okay, can I come on in? And I walked on in, walked up the hallway, walked to the mayor's office. When I looked in the mayor's office, that's the first time I could see, you know, who all was in there. But I knocked on the door, and walked in. The mayor was sitting behind her desk, at her desk. Mr. Terry Reeves was sitting next to her. Ms. Tawana Brown was sitting on the end of the desk with a bunch of stacks of envelopes, and, you know, I found out, you know, by conversation that they were invoices and bills that they were going through. Mr. WHIPPLE-LUE was sitting in a chair over behind where I was standing, and Ms. Barbara Toes came in the room, and she had a chair, but she stood up most of the time, you know, while I was standing there.
Okay, so when you went in, there were two council people in the room. That's Terry Reeves and the mayor.
Terry Reeves and the mayor were sitting there in the mayor's office, right, with Ms. Brown and WHIPPLE-LUE in the office, and Ms. Toes came in with me.
Okay. So when you got there in the mayor's office was Tawana Brown, the mayor, Terry Reeves, and then Ms. Toles came in the office with you.
Right. She was in there when I first got there, because I could see her come out of the office of the mayor. You can see the door through the front.
Okay, so you're saying she was in, before you came to the door, you believe
Ms. Toles
was in the mayor's office
Yes,
with
I
his
did.
other?
Yes, from what I saw, yes.
Okay. Did you call, I think you just said yesterday, when you got to the door, you called the police?
I did, I certainly did, yes, sir.
And what was the reason for calling the police?
I was expecting when I went in that there may be some confrontation between myself and the mayor when I went in to find out what was going on, and I wanted the police department to be there just in case there was some confrontation.
So you went in thinking that there was gonna be a problem?
Certainly.
It's certain, why is it certain?
Because all the problems had been going on in the city, you know, up until that point. You know, the mayor and I had already had some discussions about different things, you know, the city charter, her being the chief operating officer. It's my way, I'm the one in charge now. So I expected, you know, to have some kind of words that in that meeting that night. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, she had been in office for 11 days.
That's right. Approximately 11,
Since January 6th.
6, that's right.
So you already knew that there was gonna be a confrontation or potential confrontation?
I was expecting some words, yes.
Okay. And how many council meetings have you guys had on January 17th?
Probably 2, maybe, or 3,
There
possibly.
was one that you got sworn in.
One that was sworn in, and then I think we had a call meeting maybe on the 9th or something, and then a regular council meeting, you know, a week from, 2 weeks from that, so it might have just been 2.
Okay. You got sworn in at, and then maybe another call meeting.
Special call, I think that's right, yes, sir. It's been a pretty good while ago.
So, when did, Mr. Smallwood get there?
In the sequence and order that I remember, Mr. Freddie Dinsley got there probably within 2 to 3 minutes after I did. Might have been 5 minutes late. I couldn't keep track of time, you know, real good.
Okay.
As I was talking, you know, to the mayor and Mr. Reeves, the door, somebody knocked on the door, was told, once again, got up, walked down the hallway, and when they came back up, Mr. Freddie Dinsley and one of the police officers came up at that time with him and came in. And in sequence after that, maybe 5 minutes after Mr. Dinsley got there, Mr. Smallwood came in.
Okay. Do you know who called Mr.?
No, sir.
You know? You didn't call?
I did not. I was in the meeting. I did not call anybody except the police.
Okay. And then, Mr. Smallwood came after you, Mr. Dinsley came after you, and then Mr. Smallwood came after that.
That's the best of my recollection, yes, sir.
Okay, so, who were the 4 people in the meeting?
Who were the 4
The
people?
4 council people.
Well, when Mr. Dens and Mr. Smallwood got there, that made 5 of us there. Ms. Toles was there, and Mr. Reese was there.
But did you see the mayor call Mr. Smallwood?
I did not see her call Mr. Smallwood.
Did you see Mr. Reeves call Mr. Smallwood?
I did not.
Did you see Ms. Toles call Mr. Smallwood?
I did not. I don't know who called me.
And you didn't call?
I did not.
And what about Mr. Denson? Did any of these people that were already there call him down there for a
I do
meeting?
not know that.
You didn't go?
I did not.
So there were only two council people apparently in the meeting when you got there, and that was Reese and Toles.
When I got there, yes, sir.
So until you got there and Smallwood got there, there was not four council people there in the building.
No, not four council people in the building at that time, no.
And, we're clear, are we not, that it takes four council people to have a quorum of the Gordon City Council?
Of the Gordon City Council meeting, not committee meetings.
Okay, but in order to have a meeting of the Gordon City Council, you gotta have four council people, is that right?
Yes, sir, that is a correct answer for a regular council meeting, not a committee meeting.
Right. So, it's always been like that for council meetings, four council people.
To transact business, to vote on anything, yes. Now, we have in the past, several years ago, the mayor, three council people did open the meeting, but we couldn't take care of any business because there was no full quorum vote to take care of it. But we have had a meeting many years ago when several people were sick and everything, and we had some things just, and all you could do was talk about it, it's like a work session.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, do you know of any other situations where there was other than January 17th, January 17th, where there was a meeting of four persons on the Gordon City Council that was not noticed or posted?
Probably the only time that I can think of is when the mayor and four of the council people went to the Gordon Bank to sign the signature cards, and all of them got together and went at one time, pretty much, you know.
And you consider that they went to take care of city business and sign signature cards at the bank, and that constituted a meeting?
When they met at City Hall first, I would, yes, sir. I mean, it's simple to go one at a time. I mean, you know, why would you have to all meet together, four of you, and go at one time, you know?
So what did they vote on at that meeting?
I don't know. I wasn't with them.
So if they had gone one at a time, or two at a time, or three at a time, it'd been okay?
Under the Georgia, you know, rules that you go by under the election, you know, what we call the sunshine law, you know. All the training that we get from GMA, they always specify that you should never get together for anything except a few, you know, exceptions, and they're spelled out when you go to meetings, you know, like in Atlanta or Savannah, when you get together, but then you're not supposed to talk about city business. There are some exceptions in there, but they always tell us, never get together as a group and discuss city business. I wouldn't even think three should be together and talk about city business, even though you can't vote. That's not following the ethics rules when you do that.
Well, I've seen pictures of three city council people together, you, Mr. Densley, Mr. Williams, on pictures together.
Certainly, when you out in the public and everything, if you run into each other, as long as you don't talk about city business, you're okay.
Okay, so it ain't always a
No.
prohibition to have three city council people together, right? Okay. Councilwoman Whipple, you never saw her there on that date, on January 17th.
I don't remember seeing her in there that night. Now, Ms. Harper, when she did call, she told me that when she left, Ms. Whipple had been there. Now, when I got there, the best of my recollection, I did not see Ms. Whipple there.
Okay, let's assume that she was there. Even if she was there, and you had Terry Reeves there, and you had Ms. Barbara Toles there, and you had Ms. Rita Whipple there, and they were all talking about city business and taking votes on city business, that would not be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, right?
If it's a committee, yes, sir.
But if there was a quorum of the city, I mean, if there was a alleged city council meeting, that would not be a violation.
No, I never said it was a council meeting, I said it was a committee meeting.
That's not what you said in your original complaint. When you first filed this complaint, you said that that was an illegal meeting of the board and city council. You remember that?
When they first wrote it up, I don't remember the exact wording of the thing, but I did tell Ms. Anna Bullington myself that it was a committee meeting, not a council meeting. If what was wrote up, I'm not sure.
Well, we're gonna look at it.
That's fine, you can refresh my memory.
Okay, well, I'm gonna come back to that.
So just to have to be short of the January 17th meeting is still alleged in the second amended complaint to be a council meeting. That's my understanding. Hold on a minute, it says quorum of the city council or its committee. Or, my understanding from Mr. Cooper was they were contending the January 17th meeting was a council meeting. That's my understanding based on the last correspondence we had, and that's what's in that letter I wrote to you, gentlemen, on June 7th, is the counts 5 through 8, the January 17th, 2014 meeting that the Cooper sticks as having to prove the quorum of the council was present. So we're dealing with a quorum of the council on January 17th.
Okay. All right, well, let's.
That answers your question.
That answers what you were So, on January 17th, just to amplify that point, on January 17th, there were no 2 or 3 person committees at the city board. Is that right?
On the 17th, it was still just one chairman of each committee,
Right.
one person committee.
All right, so anytime any one person went anywhere, that was a committee.
If they went to talk to somebody in the city about business.
All right. Now, you testified, on the record examination that the mayor was taking certain liberties with, certain things that you felt like she didn't have the authority to take liberty with, such as, changing the locks on the, location that you described as a hometown, better hometown location than Gordon Depot, is that right?
Yes, sir.
But, you agree with me, won't you, that the mayor is the administrative head of city government?
No, sir.
You don't agree with that?
She is not the administrative head.
Are you familiar with, section 3.21 of the city board charter?
Pretty much under the charter, the mayor is the executive branch, not administrative.
I want to show you section 3.31 of this document called the Code of the City of Gordon, Georgia.
Sure.
3.31.
.31.
I believe
This is
it's
not the right page.
Or is
shall be
the
the
first
chief,
sentence.
the mayor shall be the chief executive of this city.
Second line.
The mayor shall possess all the executive and administrative powers granted to the city under the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, and all the executive and administrative powers contained in this charter, except as otherwise specifically provided in this act. The mayor shall have the authority to delegate any one or more of the executive or administrative powers to a person or persons employed by the city and qualified in management and administration.
Okay. So the mayor does have administrative powers, does she not?
Under that, yes, sir, I'd agree with that, but
And executive powers.
yeah, she is the executive, right?
Okay, look at section 3.22, which says powers and duties of the mayor, and read subparagraph 3.
Paragraph 3, exercises supervision over all executive and administrative work of the city and provide for the coordination of administrative activities.
Okay. So,
Okay.
the mayor is the executive head of government, and the administrative head of government, right?
Under that reading, I would agree with that.
Okay. So if the mayor is the executive and the administrative head of government, how is it that you figure the mayor can't change the locks on a city building?
Because if you read on through and you get into the section about what the powers of the city council is, we make all the rules, policies, procedures, and then the mayor has to administer them. That's where she gets the administrative part. She has to administer them after city council passes all those. She does not have any power to make any laws, regulations, rules, motions, or any of it. The council does.
So you filed this complaint because you got a disagreement over the mayor's exercise of her executive and administrative powers. You contend that she doesn't have the power to change the locks on a building, and that only if she gets the approval of the council can she change the locks on a building.
Sir, that would be my take on that.
Okay, and you also disagree that she can't move money out of the Georgia Fund 1 account unless the council approves of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there an ordinance that states that?
No, sir, there's not an ordinance. An ordinance is basically a law. This is more or less something that took place many years ago under a motion, and you'd have to go back probably 10 or 15 years when we first got into Georgia Fund 1. At that particular time, it was decided that if we needed to get money out of it, you had to follow the proper procedure, and the proper procedure is for the city council to vote to move that money.
You got a copy of that?
I do not.
So Mayor Lou would not have known anything about that? That you said was passed, what, 15 years ago?
Probably a good while back, yes, sir, but now she had been told many, many times she could not do that by city council, by auditors, and by the attorneys.
What auditors told her that?
I believe it was Mr. Miller Edwards of Malden and Jenkins.
Marlon and Jenkins didn't come on until after this happened.
No, they were here in 2014 and 2015 when we did some audits and everything, began to do our audits and everything.
Well, how is it that the people at the state of Georgia told her she couldn't?
May I answer that the correct way? Is that the mayor, by council's approval, signed a resolution that put her name on the Georgia Fund 1 so that she could be one of the legal signers to take money out of that fund or invest it. We've already had that resolution before us. It does not say that she can move the money just anywhere she wants to. It's our procedures that this money can only be appropriated by city council. City council is the only one in the city of Gordon who has the authority to change the budget and appropriate more money. Only city council.
Okay, now you heard Mr. Denver testify that, that you guys wanted to table transfer of that money. Is that right?
That was the particular night that we talked about when we were going to transfer $100,000 $150,000. I made a motion to transfer the money to the Gordon Bank. That's where it goes. There's one account that it goes in Morris Bank. I made a motion, I'm not sure who seconded it, but it went down to myself, Mr. Dennis, and Mr. Smallwood, and Ms. Whipple all voted to start with, to vote yes to transfer the money. Ms. Toles, she either voted no or she abstained. The mayor herself questioned Ms. Whipple in that meeting about, are you going to vote to do that? And then Ms. Whipple changed her vote to either an abstention or a no. That's reflected in the minutes of that particular meeting. So the motion failed at the very end of the meeting, just, short version of it. It was 3-2, and the motion failed for us to move the money.
So you wanted to move the money?
I wanted to move the money.
Okay, and then why would the mayor then try to, the implication of what you're saying is that the mayor did not want Ms. Whipple to vote to move the money. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir, and if I could explain that a little bit, there were some bills that Boone, Scott, and Boone had turned in that was, fairly good amount of money, and in order to pay them, we were gonna have to have that $150,000 in order to pay them and to cover that had come up in the meeting earlier, so I'm assuming, that's just what I would think, that they didn't want to get the money out to pay Mr. Boone. They, had some hard feelings against Mr. Boone.
So then why did she go move the money and put it in the account? That's what I don't understand.
I don't know that answer.
It's not making a lot of sense to me. Does that make sense to you that she had this motive not to move the money, but then she defied the council's wishes and moved the money anyway so that people could be paid?
Well, we didn't use money, not then.
But the reason you made the motion to move the money was that the money was needed, right?
Well, we thought it was gonna be needed, but we got a, tax check from the county before all of that money was, available, the $150,000. The money sit in the bank until Gordon City Council voted to approve legally to use that money. We never used the $150,000.
Well, that was after the fact though, but I'm just saying, it was moved by the mayor, and you contend illegally moved, and the motivation to move the money was your motion, because the clerk had said that the bills needed to be paid, right?
That's exactly right.
And then the mayor moved the money, and then you added it to your complaint that the mayor should be removed from office for moving the money, that you made a motion that to be moved. I'm trying to understand what's the logic behind you saying that that's an incident of why the mayor should be removed, when she did what you wanted to have done in the first place.
If it had been legally voted on, yes. You cannot do things illegal. You have to follow policy and procedure.
Yeah, but you agree with me that
Your Honor, I object. He's cutting off Mr. Eady. This is the third time he's done it. I don't think Mr. Eady was done with his response.
They both have been doing it, and I've tried to slow them down a little bit, but, please let him finish his answer. If you have not finished, go ahead and finish your
Yeah,
answer.
that's pretty much my answer.
Okay, very well. That's what it usually happens.
Okay. So, the mayor moved the money. You agree with me, do you not, let me finish, that number one, there is no written ordinance that says the mayor has to get approval from the council. Is that correct?
Not an ordinance, no.
Okay. There is a resolution that gives the mayor the authority to transfer money out of the Georgia Fund 1 account. Is that correct?
The resolution puts her name on their signature that she is one of those who can move the money, yes. Invest or, take money out.
Right. You agree that she has the power to withdraw funds?
If it's voted on for her to do so.
Well, that's not what the resolution says.
The resolution doesn't say she can just do it, it just says she has the authority to invest money and to, take money out.
We agree to that second point. We agree that into, the Morris Bank account, general fund account in Morris Bank for the city court, right?
It was moved illegally, yes, sir.
And you made a motion for the money to be moved and failed.
Yes, sir, exactly.
Okay.
Can I see that resolution?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Now, what else do you know about the mayor's unauthorized use of, funds?
Well, you know, there are several different things. One, just this past, January, at Mayor's Day, once again, when the mayor went to Mayor's Day, she put down, a guest to go with her, and, her husband, Mr. WHIPPLE-LUE, had passed away last year. So, after we got up to Atlanta, I was there myself, we found out that the mayor did have a guest up there, and her name was, Linda Harris.
Well, let me stop you there. Your amended complaint was filed on January 29th of 2016. And in that complaint, you said that the mayor, had permitted the unauthorized use of city resources and that she had, misused city funds. So I wanna know what you knew prior to January the 29th of 2016. Okay?
Prior to that,
Yes.
okay? On several occasions, right after the mayor came into office and she took the city's credit card, there were several occasions when her and several other people, her husband, Mr. Reeves, and I think Ms. Toll, went to different places and charged meals on the credit card.
Where was it at, that this happened at these places that you went to?
I'm not sure all the different places, but I know they went to Milledgeville and ate one time, they went to Dublin one time and ate out, you know. We see all of these bills, you know, because we get a copy of them every month.
And isn't it true you went to Savannah and charged some meals for your family members?
Oh, certainly, yes, sir.
Okay. On the city, and got reimbursed for them by the city?
Yes, sir, it's a regular annual convention training event that's, set up in our budget. Each council person has a budget amount of money for training each year. And, typically we go 2 times a year. The Mayor's Day is in January, and then the annual convention is in June. It's coming up this weekend.
Okay. And you charge like 4 or 5 people on that?
No, sir, I've never had 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
My wife goes with me, and, sometimes my grandson, who I have raised, goes with me.
Okay.
And it's, typical that over the last 32 years that I've been there, a lot of the other council people over the years have done the same thing. They carry their children because it's a event where the husband and wife away, rather than pay child expense, we carry the children with us, you know. They can stay in the room for free. A lot of times I buy pizzas and bring to the room. I never turn them in. Not all the time, I don't.
Okay, so you say that there's, this incident where the mayor and Ms. Cole went to Millersville and charged some meals.
I think Milledgeville was one of them, and Dublin was one of them that I remember.
Okay, do you know what that was for?
No, sir, I don't.
Do you have any receipts or anything to prove that?
I don't, but the city does.
Okay. So how does the credit card policy work with the city?
We adopted a credit card policy probably in 2002 or 3 when we got the credit card. The city never had a credit card up until then. When Mr. Turner became mayor, he wanted to get a credit card so that we could go off to these events and wouldn't have to use our own credit cards to put charges on, or some places you go, the hotels, motels will not accept a city check. That's what used to happen. They pay with just a city check. So Mr. Turner and the council decided that they would get a credit card, and I think it was in 2002 while I was in between serving on the council. I was out for 2 years when Mr. Turner went in. And that's when they voted on it, but the policy has been in effect since '02, '03. And it specifically specifies that, you know, it will be used for annual training and the meals at those trainings, and that was basically it. And recently, you know, if I can, go ahead and say, the state of Georgia last year passed a new law that says any city who uses a credit card has to have a written policy, and it has to be very specific. You have to have the limit, you have to have when it can be used, and basically who uses it, who's in charge of it. And we just recently adopted that this year.
Okay. All right. Let me just touch on one other thing. The new gasoline policy, that was one of those other things that you mentioned that the mayor didn't have the power to do. And you still claim that she didn't have power to change the gasoline policy because the council had to vote on it.
Well, yes, sir, that's what my take on that would be. I would think that the mayor, if not even voting on it, if for some reason there was a reason to change it, she should have let everybody know what was going to take place before she did it, not afterwards. I found it out from her when she called and told me they had already been instructed to cut the lock off and put new locks on, and she wrote a little memo that I saw after I got back, you know, a day or so later, you know, that she had made this decision to control the gas pump first 5 days of the week, and, you know, any other time they would have to be a special, or somebody like Mr. Melvin Lawrence, I think, who she said was gonna be in charge of coming to unlock the let in. And when she talked to me on the phone and told me that, I told her that I did not think that would work very well because the fire trucks never know when they may be out on the call. We may go out on the weekend, middle of the night, we may run the truck for 2 or 3 or 4 hours and give out of fuel or almost out of fuel, and we have to go fill up before we go back.
Well, let me ask you, how big is the city court?
In area or population? It's probably about a mile square, I'd say.
Okay. So if a fire truck is running a mile, you think they're gonna use up a whole tank of gas?
Oh, you don't use the gas on a truck running to the fire, you use it while you fighting the fire. You have to keep the truck running for the whole time you fight the fire. We fought fire sometimes 3 and 4 and 5 hours, you know, that we have to stay there.
So, let me ask you, how much gas does a fire truck use in an hour?
I don't know, it's like most diesels, it probably only gets maybe 6, 7 gallons per mile, but we talking about hours that the motor is running, sitting there, running wide open. We run at about 2,000 RPM to get the pressure we need to fight a fire. So we may sit there and run for 2 or 3 hours while we're fighting a fire and using up the fuel.
Okay, and how many gallons does a fire truck?
Most of them hold around 50 gallons, but we don't fill the truck up every day. You know, we don't have nothing but a volunteer fire department, so we have a regular routine of having the trucks checked out probably twice a month, and we usually go and try to put fuel in them. But in between those 2 times, you may have 8 or 10 calls, use the gas or fuel up, and, you know, the fuel tank may not be half full or quarter full, you know, when you start.
But wasn't there a problem in the city of Gordon where you had a lot of unauthorized people taking gas out of the city's gas tank?
I don't know that.
You don't know it?
I don't know. The policy and procedure that we use, the same policy and procedure that every vehicle uses in the city of Gordon, as far as I know, is that when you go to get gas, you unlock the pump, you go in, you put the fuel in, you record your miles, and you record the gallons, whether it's gas or fuel. We have 2. We have regular gas and we have diesel fuel for it. When you fill out it, you have a chart that's with you, and you record the vehicle number, you put the miles down, and you sign off on it who did it. That's the way we do it in the fire department. I know the police follow the same procedure.
And you never heard anybody taking their friends and family members there and getting gas?
No, sir, I have not.
You haven't heard that? Now, you voted to settle the discrimination lawsuit that Tawana Brown, Chief Hall, Heather Harper, and I think Melvin Lawrence filed against the city, is that right?
Basically, when those charges were filed, we were still under GERMA, and the only vote that we took was to give GERMA the authority to make a settlement or decide whether we needed to go to court, and they made a settlement. We didn't have to vote on it at all after that. All we did was vote to give GERMA the authority to make that settlement.
Okay, you voted for that.
Yes, sir.
And you voted for, this settlement of this, whistleblower claim that Tawana Brown filed against the city board, right?
It's hard to remember, we had two EEOC suits by Ms. Brown and Mr. Hall, and I remember those more distinctly than I did the whistleblower suit. I do remember that we voted to settle those two suits. We had to settle those out of the city funds. We did not have any insurance to cover those. But I did not remember coming to conclusion on the whistleblower suit.
Okay, and you voted,
Hold on just a second. I thought you said you had GERMA to pay the discrimination case.
The first two, the first four. The first of the year 2014, there was 4 people who filed EEOC suits against the mayor.
Y'all had insurance?
We had insurance up until March of that year, and they covered those first 4. They paid out $3,000 apiece to each one of them. That was something that was known. And then after we lost insurance, sometime in 2015, Ms. Brown and Chief Hall filed 2 other complaints through the EEOC, and they came down and did an investigation. And it was the same scenario. They did an investigation. They sent down a recommendation of how to settle it up.
They being who?
The EEOC.
They came down and investigated, they recommended.
EEOC
Okay.
and the lawyers that we hired for that. And so when they recommended that we settle it up, or either it would have to go to federal court, the city council, again, with 4 votes, voted to settle that suit also.
Those 6 or something.
6 EEOC suits all total, plus a whistleblower suit.
and, prior to the mayor coming in office, there was another employment discrimination lawsuit against the city by, former police officer, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the city paid out on that one too.
It was the same scenario. The GERMA insurance company had control of it, and we voted to turn it over to them to make whatever settlement they thought was necessary. It never came back to city council after that.
And that had nothing to do with Mayor Luke, right?
That particular suit, no, it did not.
That was a lawsuit against the police department.
The way I understand it, EEOC suits are not lawsuits, they're claims. If it doesn't settle up in the EEOC department, it moves into federal court, and then it becomes a lawsuit.
Right. And was that lawsuit the one I'm talking about before the mayor came to office? Was that a EEOC claim or a lawsuit?
It settled up as an EEOC suit as far as I know. We never got any more information on it.
Okay. And, with regards to Miss Judy Bailey, I think your testimony was that the mayor had her arrested. Is that right? Did you say that? I'm not sure. You
No,
said-
I did not say the mayor had her arrested.
Okay.
The mayor would not let her speak, and she told her, tried to quiet her down and not let her speak during one of the meetings after there had been a kind of a deal a few months before. Ms. Bailey was upset, and she was trying to say something, and we was conducting our meeting that night, and the mayor was trying to hush her up, and one of the police officers went over, and he's the one that escorted out, and I'm assuming that he is the one that arrested her.
Okay, was she out of order in the meeting?
Well, I can't say that she was real out of order. She was speaking. Yes, sir.
She wasn't real out of order, but she was a little bit out of order.
Well, we've had other meetings where people spoke up, that, hadn't been given permission, and did nothing like that happen with them.
So, the police officer escorted her out, and you think he arrested her?
Yes, sir, I think so.
Okay. And then she sent the city a letter, right?
We got a letter from a lawyer representing her.
And then you guys, without her filing any sort of lawsuit or whatever, you voted to pay her $45,000.
That was the amount we paid her to settle it up, yes, sir.
And you voted for it.
Yes, sir. Me and 3 more council people did for sure. There's 4 votes.
And why did you vote for that?
Your Honor, I object on behalf of the city. That's subject is confidential. It was discussed in executive session and is protected by settlement agreement this morning.
They already told the amount that it was, settlement.
That part was voted in a public meeting and is open record. But as to why the discussions behind that was executive
The
session.
discussion would be executive session, why he voted, he's already said he voted that way, I think why he voted that way would be, invisible, I don't really get that.
Why did you vote to pay Miss Judy Bailey $45,000 of city money? And all you told us you knew about it was that she was escorted out of the city council.
Yes, sir, and I'm gonna have to refer back just what Mr. Green said. All the discussion that we had of why we made that decision was done in executive session, and unless the judge tells me I have to tell you that, I'd rather just leave it at that.
I'm not gonna belabor the point. Now, recently, you attended court in Clayton County, Georgia, where Mayor Lou was handling some probate matters for emergency sale.
Sir, now, I want to say this, sir.
What was the purpose of you going to Clayton County, Georgia to sit in on the mayor's probate situation for emergency sale?
Okay, long story, try to make it short as I can. The Lou family has been in touch with, some of us in Gordon. We have, all you have to do is go online and you can pull up anything that's on the court calendar in anywhere if you know somebody's there. Well, the mayor had signed an affidavit a while back that said her address, she signed an affidavit that said her address was in Jonesboro. And if she lived in Jonesboro, she can't be the mayor of Gordon. So we were concerned why she had an address in Jonesboro, and we were just going up there just to kind of listen to see what was going on.
So what you found out?
They didn't do anything that day. They forwarded over, and we're going to continue the case.
Now, the address you're talking about in Jonesboro, Clayton County, that's her husband's house, right?
I do not know that. Her name was on the affidavit that we got from the court. That she swore she lived in a certain street address in Jonesboro.
But you know where the mayor lives, you've been to her house before, right?
I have been to her house a few times over the years. She had a fire before, and I've been there, years before. I know where she lived.
You've known her all your life, right?
I've known her, yes, sir. But I do know that when she married, she moved off from here and stayed for a while before she came back to be elected as mayor.
But did she ever change her voting residence?
I do not know that.
And you know that you can own a house in many different places, and that doesn't mean that your place of residence for purposes of your citizenship and your voting rights.
Not your voting right, but if you put it down as your residence, you own it and you live there.
Well, you can have several residences, can't you, Mr. Eady?
Sure, yes, sir.
You can have 10 different residences.
You can own 10 different houses. I wouldn't call it a residence. A residence is where you live.
Well, I'm not gonna belabor the point with you on that, but you would agree with me that a person can have several different residences. I can have a residence in Florida, I can have one in Texas. But that doesn't mean anything in terms of where I vote and where my voting residence is and where I can run for office.
No, it's not as far as voting, no.
Okay, all right. So you traveled all the way up to Clayton County just to see what was gonna happen with regards to this issue on her residence?
Certainly.
Okay. Now, you familiar with the fact that and I believe you were actually here when Andy Hester police officer named G.B.R, tried to get an indictment on the mayor for false swearing. You remember that?
I remember all that, yes, sir.
Yeah, did you have anything to do with him trying to have that taken out on her?
Not me, no, sir.
Okay. And there was a Mrs. Richardson that tried to have her, arrested for allegedly, you remember that?
Who now, I'm sorry?
Mrs. Richardson, I can't remember her first name. Robinson, Kelly Robinson, I'm sorry.
I remember, yes, I remember when they went to court with that. I'm not involved in any of that either.
Now, let me ask you about the insurance. Why do you think that the G.B.R declined coverage to the city of Ward?
Well, myself and the councilman, the mayor, and all the other councilmen, and everybody involved in the city business, we received a letter from someone that's over G.B.R. I don't remember the name, but we have a letter that came to the city, and they said that they would not be covering us anymore because of the dysfunction, and that's the word that they used, the dysfunction between mayor and council. There was already the 4 EEOC claims involved, and they just decided, I can't answer that, I'm only telling you what they said, because of the dysfunction and the possibility of other claims coming up, they were not going to cover us anymore, they dropped the coverage.
So part of the dysfunction is this lawsuit that you filed, right?
Well, I don't know that.
So you filed a lawsuit against the mayor to remove her from office. So that would be one of the factors that G.B.R was relying on when they said that there was dysfunction. Would that make sense to you?
I can't answer that question, that's up to them to make their decision, I don't know.
Yeah. But you don't see that you had any part in them deciding that there was dysfunction in the city of Ward?
Not as far as this lawsuit goes, no.
So this lawsuit, you don't think factored into their decision at all?
It could have, I can't answer that for them.
Okay. I'm asking you, what do you think?
I don't know.
When did they deny it? When did you get the letter that was not going to be renewed?
I think it was, I'm not positive, I think the, insurance ran out in March or April of 2014, and we got the letter a few months before it ran out. As a matter of fact, they didn't meet the deadline for the 30 days that they have to give you, so they had to keep us on for an extra month maybe, but I'm just thinking, Your Honor, it was somewhere around March or April of 2014.
When was the lawsuit filed?
In March.
March 9, 2014.
You don't remember if you got the letter before the lawsuit was filed or after the lawsuit was filed?
I do not remember for sure if it was before or after, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we're going to consider on a redirect with the letter stated before the lawsuit was filed.
Yeah, they didn't receive it.
In March is what we did it.
54.
Plaintiff 54 is tendered and no objection is admitted.
Is this the letter you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at that particular time, you had what's the letter dated?
This letter is dated March the 5th, 2014.
And when does it say the effective date of cancellation?
The effective date of cancellation is 5/1.
Okay. At this particular point in time on March 5th, there had been about any other claims other than, the one that they handled before Mayor Lou took office, the EEOC claim, and these four.
The only one I knew of was the Larry Shinholster EEOC claim.
That was the one before Mayor Lou
Right,
took
and
office.
then these four that we talked about that were settled by German, those are the only ones that I know before that, yes, sir.
Had the city of Gordon had any other previous claims with the city with Thurman, to your knowledge?
One that I can remember, yes, sir.
When was that?
It was probably, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
Okay. So to your knowledge, the only claims that have been government involved with the city of Gordon were the 4 EEOC complaints that were filed after Mayor Lou took office. The one that Mr. Shinholster filed before she took office, and one filed for 6 years prior to that.
All that I can remember, yes, sir.
Do you remember another claim in which a woman was tased at a restaurant in German House?
That's the one I was referring to, I wasn't gonna get
Oh,
into it,
okay.
yes, that was the
That's
only
the
one.
one.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
No, that's all I had.
You redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Councilman Eady, while we're still talking about plaintiff's exhibit 54, the notice of non-renewal, do you see the second paragraph, the city's coverage is not being renewed?
This paper here, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Will you read that paragraph?
Paragraph says, the city's coverage is not being renewed because of apparent dysfunction among the elected officials of the city, which has created conditions that increase risk of loss to the city beyond acceptable levels. And continue to read.
Yes.
These conditions are exemplified by the apparent consistent disregard of open meeting laws and related notice requirements by the mayor and several members of council, resulting in close scrutiny by the Attorney General's office. Notably, such scrutiny is occurring at the same time 3 department heads of the city have filed claims of discrimination and threatening claims of retaliation based on statements and conduct attributed to the mayor, thereby unnecessarily increasing potential liability on the claim.
That's fine. And that doesn't mention anything about this suit, does it?
No, sir.
And do you see the final paragraph where it says enclosed or loss reports for the last 5 years?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And if you'll flip to the next page, this is one of the loss reports, right? Or the page after that. I'm sorry, page 2 of the spreadsheet. Flip one more.
Get to it. Okay,
This is one of the loss reports, correct? Or is this one?
that's what it says here, yes, sir.
And do you see, does it list 2 potential administrative claims by the state of Georgia?
I'm not sure I'm looking at the right line. If you want me to, possibly the right place, there's a lot of different.
Right in here.
Okay.
And what's the description at the bottom, right down here for these potential claims?
Okay, it says, under this description for the claim, city mayor is reportedly violating the state open meetings law.
And then if you'll flip to the next page, does this appear to list 4 EEOC claims by Heather Hauber, Luana Brown, Melvin Lawrence, and Rupert Hall?
Yes, sir, that would be the four that's on this page.
And is Rupert Hall, is that Chief Hall?
Chief Hall, yeah,
Okay.
chief of police.
And then on the next page, there's something about a city vehicle running into claimant vehicle with Valerie Rupert. What is that?
assumed that it would be just a regular wrecked vehicle. Somebody run into somebody, maybe they had a claim other than for the vehicle, maybe bodily injury or something that they could file a claim for.
Okay. And we've talked a lot about this Georgia Fund One and the powers to transfer monies. And I want to look at a few provisions of the city charter, which has been marked as Plans Exhibit 1. Will you look at section 6.19 of the charter?
6.19,
Yes, sir.
about borrowing.
About borrowing.
Yes, sir.
Who has the authority under section 6.19 to have the power to issue bonds to borrow money?
The city council shall have the power to issue bonds for the purpose of raising revenue to carry out any project, program, venture authorized under the charter or the laws of the state.
That's fine. And under section 6.22, what does that section deal with?
6.22, the heading is accounting and budgeting. The city council shall set the fiscal year by ordinance. The fiscal year shall constitute the budget year and the year for financial accounting and reporting of each and every office, department, agency, and activity of the city government.
And
You don't have to remember 6.1.
6.22.
6.22.
And what does section 6.23 deal with?
Under it is budget order. The city council shall provide an ordinance on the procedures and requirements for the preparation and execution of an annual operating budget, a capital improvement program, and a capital budget, including requirements as to the scope, content, and form of such budgets and programs.
And section 6.24, you don't have to read the whole section, but what does section 6.24 deal with?
The operating budget.
And who approves the operating budget under section 6.24?
Only for a date fixed by the city council, but not later than 30 days prior. The mayor shall submit to the city council a proposed operating budget for the fiscal year. The budget shall be accompanied by a message from the mayor, and it will be, the city council will be the ones who would vote on this.
And under section 6.27, what does that section deal with? Just generally, what's the,
Changes in the budget.
and who has the ability to change the budget?
The city council by vote shall make changes in the appropriations.
And what if there's an emergency and the budget has to be changed on an emergency basis? What does section 6.27 direct?
That it has to be a call meeting and the city council does.
Do any of these provisions allow the mayor to change the budget or to change the procurement of money?
No, sir, not that I can read in this charter.
And if you go to section 6.30,
Okay.
does it require contracts with the city and other entities to be in writing?
Under that is listed as procurement and property management. No contract with the city except contract with the State Department of Transportation and Road Improvement. Contract shall be binding on the city unless it is in writing, it is drawn or submitted and reviewed by the city attorney, and as a matter of course is signed by him to indicate such drafting or review. And 3, it is made or authorized by the city council, and such approval is entered in the city council journal of proceedings pursuant to section 314 of this charter.
Okay. And Your Honor, I borrowed Defendant's Exhibit 1 again. It was the resolution to authorize investment. Thank you, Your Honor. Councilman Reeves, I'm going to show you Defendant's Exhibit 1 again, which is the resolution to authorize investment. If you look under section 1, there are 3 individuals that appear to be listed who are authorized to deposit and or withdraw funds from the Georgia Fund 1 account. Who are those individuals?
First one on the line is Tawana M. Brown, City Clerk Treasurer. Second one is Mary Ann WHIPPLE-LUE, Mayor, City of Gordon. The third one is Terry Reeves,
this resolution allows Mary Ann Whipple-LUE to freely, without council approval, withdraw Georgia Fund 1 monies for whatever purposes she deems necessary and appropriate. Wouldn't Tawana Brown have the same power?
Yes, sir, under this you would.
Can you imagine a scenario as a city councilman where the city clerk, without any approval by elected officials, would be allowed to do that?
I would think it would be a good practice.
Let me ask a question. I'm just now getting some concept of what this Georgia One Fund is. All that is it's city money that was in the city account from whatever source. It was money that had already been procured, either from taxes or fees or whatever. It was money that the city had. It was city money that was then put into this account because it is an investment account. Instead of you having to put it into a savings account or whatever, it's an investment account operated by the GMA where all the cities get together and they can all just deposit their money in this investment account, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So it's not a matter of taking money out that's from a separate source that was furnished to you by some state agency or by a grant or anything else. How is this any different than money that's just sitting in the city's checking account? And Tawana Brown could have written a check to pay the bills from the checking account. And this is just the same thing, it's just in a different account, it's still the city money.
It's still city money, Your Honor, but it's not in the yearly budget.
Well, it's nothing to do with the budget,
Yes,
it's
sir.
money in the bank.
Our city budget has to be followed strictly from year end to the year end. Only the money that is appropriated in that budget can be used and spent. Anything that's not in that budget has to come back to city council and has to be appropriated at that time.
I understand that you can't, the mayor arguably cannot amend the budget. The mayor nor Tawana Brown, nobody can spend money that's not budgeted without council approval. I got that,
Okay.
and I understand that, but this is a difference in the budget. When you budget, you decide how much you're gonna spend during the year. You don't decide where the money's gonna come from, or whether you're gonna get it out of this account or that account if you need it, it's just still money in the bank.
You do have to state where the money's coming from. State law says it has to be a balanced budget. You have to determine where the money's coming from. We have to put each line item down on our budget. Property taxes, franchise taxes, fees for fines, and
That's where the money
everything.
comes from.
Yes, sir. That is a yearly budget. This is money that has been put in there years ago that's in a reserve fund, and you cannot move that money back into the budget without voting on it.
I understand the argument, but okay.
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Steve, I want you to take a look at what we marked as D2. Tell me if you've seen that document before.
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's a reimbursement for mileage, food, and hotel charges from 6/25/14.
And that's a document that you created, is that right?
Yes, sir, it is.
And that was from your trip down to the annual meeting in Savannah in the year 2014.
2014.
All right. Now, I want to ask you, I want to move it to this. said you and your wife on bills?
I said my wife and grandchildren.
Grandchildren? You said
Grandchildren, yes,
I
sir.
thought you said grandson.
I do carry my grandson, and I usually put him down, but I usually pay out of my pocket for my granddaughter.
Okay. I want you to look at the second page of this, where it says WHIPPLE-LUE Mexican Restaurant, Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
And on that line there, where it says yes, tell me how many people you paid for on that. If you got the city to reimburse you for.
Yes, $474,
Okay, how much was that bill?
$2 cents.
All right, so you got the city to reimburse you for 4 people, right, on that particular occasion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so was that within or without the policy that you just described a little while ago with regards to the city's credit card policy?
It was certainly within the scope of the policy, yes, sir.
How so?
As I have stated before now, you're allowed to carry your children and everything with you, those who live in the household with you, and that was my grandchildren who were with me that day, and I turned that in.
So the good grandchildren live with you?
One of them lives with me full-time, the other one is part-time.
You were reimbursed this entire amount on this reimbursement sheet, $516.
If it says that, yes, sir.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Nothing but
Hey, step down, oh, you're next with me.
Planning to call Miss Heather Hauber, Deputy Clerk, City Warden.
How do you spell her last name?
H-A-W-B-E-R.
H-A-W-B-E-R.
Yes, sir.
Come over here, please, ma'am. Right hand, if you swear the testimony you're about to give in the case now in Judy, you can prove the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat.
Warden Miss Hauber, would you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Heather Walker, and I'm the deputy clerk for the city of Reeves.
The deputy clerk, what does that job consist of?
Basically, supporting the city clerk and assisting mayor and council on a day-to-day basis in operating the city.
How long have you worked in the clerk's office?
Approximately 10 years.
Has that been entirely as the deputy clerk?
It has,
Okay. Oh, what would you say you like about this job, if you do like the job?
well, I love my customers, working with mayor, council, I just love it.
And how would you describe the atmosphere when Mayor Lue came into office, so early in 2014?
Very tense
Why would you say
from the
that?
beginning. Just a lot of controversy. The whole staff felt in the beginning a lot of tension. People were concerned for their jobs, this kind of thing.
Did anything else about the office change when she came in?
Absolutely. When she came into office, she brought her husband in with her almost on a daily basis. Other people coming in and out of the office back behind the closed door where we keep our money and our private papers, this kind of thing, files that the clerk is responsible for, yes.
And you said the mayor's husband, do you mean Mr. Lue?
I do.
And what sort of things would he do in the office?
He would come back behind the counter where
And these other individuals that you discussed, were they escorted by anybody, or did they have access to the entire office?
At one point, I do have a recollection of the mayor had her and her husband in her office and some other gentlemen whom I do not know who they were. But it was at the end of the day and we were closing up, and it's my responsibility to take the cash money out of the drawer and walk it down the hallway to put it into the safe. And as I'm doing so, some gentleman who I don't know his name or who he was at the time follows me clear down the hallway while I'm standing with the money in my hand to put it in the safe.
With the city money?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a key to, forgot the name of those files, is it GCIC?
I do. I have a set of keys to the files, but I only have the first 4 file cabinets. The clerk has the access to the rest.
Okay, let's talk about GCIC. What does that stand for?
I'm not really sure.
Is that the Georgia Criminal, I forgot.
The municipal court.
Georgia Crime,
Information center.
Georgia Crime Information Center. Thank you. Do you have keys to those files?
I do.
And do you know if there's any training or certification that's required for?
There is a certification class that you have to take.
Have you taken that
Yes, at
certification?
the police department, yes.
Okay. Do you know if Ms. Brown is certified
Yes.
for GCIC?
Yes, she is.
Is the mayor certified for
No.
GCIC?
No.
Okay, thank you. There's been some discussion about EEOC complaints or charges. Did you file an EEOC complaint against the mayor or the city of Gordon?
Did,
Why did you do that?
because at the time, we were having, when Mr. Lieu was in the office with the mayor, we were being confronted, both myself, the public works superintendent, the city clerk, and the chief of police. We were being questioned thoroughly about how things are operated. It was a very intimidating situation. There was a point when Mr. Lieu told me, I was in the mayor's office with the mayor and Mr. Lieu, and he looked at me and said, "Do you know what we're planning on doing with your position, with your job?" And the mayor said, "We're not gonna discuss that right now." And so I don't know what the intentions were, but I was very intimidated by that situation. And then also we were having people come and applying for jobs when we had no postings for any jobs open. And they were saying, the mayor said to come up here and apply for a job. And they were African American.
Applying for your job?
Just for anything, any position within the city. And there was no position available at any time
There was no open position at that time?
that were being posted.
So you assume that it would be
Could
your
be,
job or Ms. Brown or other
could be,
people in those positions?
correct.
Okay. Do you know whether the clerk, Ms. Brown, filed an EEOC complaint? Okay, how would you describe the way that Mayor Lieu has treated Ms. Brown, excuse me, over time?
There's just a lot of I would say that the mayor came in trying to take a lot of responsibility for the clerk's positions. So there was some conflict with the two of those in that respect.
Okay. Ms. Harvard, were you subpoenaed to testify here today?
I was,
Okay. And did you want to testify on your own?
no,
And why is that? What would you expect might occur as a result of you testifying here today?
conflict in the office. I just wanna do my job. I wanna go to work, do my job. I don't wanna have any kind of conflict between the mayor or the city clerk. You know, I just wanna do my job.
Thank you. That's all for now.
Yes, sir.
Wanted to ask you, about the EEOC complaint you filed.
job, she does hers, and I go home.
Have you ever heard Mary Lou tell the clerk that she's gonna fire her?
No, I have not.
So currently, you would not describe the atmosphere in the office between you and Mary Lou as a tense relationship?
Not at this time.
And how long has it been not tense?
Since she was reinstated, after she was suspended.
So that was back in 2014.
That's correct.
So since 2014, let's say the summer of 2014, you've not had a tense relationship with Mary Lou?
I have not, no.
And even though the clerk filed a second EEOC complaint today, are you aware of that?
I am.
But you didn't file a
I
second.
did not.
And why is that?
Because when the mayor came back into office after suspension, I tried to work with her. I do not want to work in a hostile environment. So, I don't feel that, she's not being hostile towards me.
And would you characterize your relationship with her as a profitable or a very beneficial relationship in terms of getting the work done at the city?
In my capacity, yes. I mean, we get along, so yes.
All right.
Just a few questions, Your Honor. Ms. Harvard, you said, that you try to work with the mayor. Did you try to work with her in the beginning?
I did.
First came in office? Okay, and just to clarify, I think you said this, early on in Mayor Lou's term, you said that you saw individuals in the office applying for jobs,
Mhm.
and I believe you said that there were no open positions.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and finally, was it your choice to file the EEOC charge, the one that you filed?
It was my choice.
It was your own choice?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions.
Do you have any indication in the beginning that the mayor was encouraging these people to come in and apply for jobs and file applications?
I did.
What was that indication?
Well, basically, when people are coming to me and telling me the mayor told me to come out and pick up an application, and we have no positions posted, so.
That was what caused the
Yes,
concern.
yes.
And you tell me that since the reinstatement, you have gotten along well,
I
working
have.
together with the mayor.
I have.
Have you seen any indication of intimidation or not a mayor of any other employees other than yourself since that time? And I realize this puts you in an uncomfortable position. You have to answer these questions.
I would say
but you are.
that's a very tense position, but those employees would be the ones that filed the second EEOC, so,
So you observed some of that because the second filing or precipitated the second.
I cannot
EEOC filing.
say I observed. Mayor's, like I said, we get along, I do my job, she does hers. But to be more specific, what's your ask?
Well, whether you observed anything, you've gotten along better, you get along well, better there, because you are better. I'm just curious if you have observed anything between her and the other employees that,
I would definitely say there's tension with her and the other employees.
you just observed tension.
Right, that's what I would.
Okay, all right. Thank you. You may step down. Is she released her subpoena, or you want her to remain available?
No, she's released, Your Honor.
Any objection? You, ma'am, you are releasing, hold on, you are releasing your subpoena. You can go and you may stay. The rule of sequestration, of course, says you can't be your own testify. It also means that you cannot thus go out and tell anybody else what questions were asked in here, what anybody said in here, or what you said in here, because if you stay here if you want to. All right, call you next week.
Please call Mr. Jonathan Jackson.
Come on in, please. All right, let's do this chair. So you see, if you raise your right hand. You put the testimony you're about to give in the case now in hearing, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. You have a seat. After you see it for the record, just tell us your name.
Jonathan Jackson.
Please answer any questions either attorney has.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson. Good morning. How are you?
Great.
Before we begin, can you tell us what compelled you to testify here today?
Subpoena.
A subpoena. Who is that subpoena from, Mr. Jackson?
From your office.
Okay. All right, let's move on. What do you do for a living?
I'm the Economic Development Director for Wilkinson County.
Okay. And have you ever done anything for the Chamber of Commerce?
I'm also the President of the Chamber of Commerce.
You're still the president? Okay. And did you say the Development Authority? Is that what you're doing now, the economic?
It's a paired position.
Okay.
I work both that.
And what does I want to make sure I get this right, the Economic Development Authority? What do they do? What are their goals?
We exist to help businesses come into the community and establish their operations.
And what about the Chamber of Commerce?
We support the existing industry in the county through the Chamber of Commerce.
Do you know if the Chamber of Commerce hosts events?
Yes, we frequently have, we have had events throughout the course of my time on the job. Some of them have been during business hours and some are after hours. And then we also have annual events throughout the year.
Since you've been the president of the Chamber of Commerce, has the Chamber hosted any events in Gordon? And where do you generally host those events?
We use the depot, the old Gordon Depot.
Is that a private area or is that a public building?
I'm assuming it's a public building because we've always been granted access to it, so.
When you say granted access, what do you mean by that?
Usually contact City Hall and ask permission to use the building. Sometimes we pay the deposit to use the building, sometimes they haven't asked us to, but typically I would go ask permission to use the building, and then I would come by, pick up keys, use the building, clean it up, and take keys back.
Who would you speak with at City Hall to request permission?
We have spoken to, or I have spoken to Heather Harbor before, and then I've spoken to the mayor. I've spoken to, I think Tawana Brown once or twice, but typically Tawana and Heather have asked me to get permission from, or asked me to get permission for us to use the building, and they want to make sure that the building's not being used for another event.
Do you remember if you were planning an event either during hours or I think you said after hours in February 2014?
Yes. The event was called Meet the Mayors, and it was an event where all of our municipalities and chamber members were invited to come and interact with our newly elected mayors in the county.
Do you recall if you called City Hall on February 4th, 2014?
I did.
And who answered the phone?
I don't recall. I think that it was Tawana, and that she would not give me direct permission to use the depot. Said, the mayor's here, I'd like for you to talk to her
did Clerk Brown give you any information about, the availability or the calendar?
I don't recall.
So she suggested you should speak to Mayor Lou? And did you go down to City Hall, or did you transfer the phone? And did you speak to Mayor
I
Lou?
did talk to Mayor Lou on the phone.
Before February 4th, 2014, did you know Mayor Lou?
Yes.
So, how did you know that you were speaking to the mayor at that time?
Because she told me this is the mayor and I've got some council members here with me. But I recognized her voice because I first met her when I think she ran for school board. And I was working for the newspaper.
Do you know if this conversation was just between the two of you?
No, I was on speakerphone.
And I believe you just said she had several members of council. Did she say who was with her?
No, she did not introduce me individually to the council members that I recall. But having worked for the newspaper, I was familiar already with Mr. Smallwood because his granddaughter and my daughter were friends growing up. I was familiar with Mr. Reeves because I covered city council for the newspaper.
And did you know, could you identify Mr. Smallwood's voice? You knew what he sounded like? Did you know what Councilman Reese sounded like?
Yes, they're both soft-spoken.
Do you know if Councilwoman Tolles was there?
Yes, it was Councilwoman Toles. Her voice is very different than Ms. Whipple's, but I didn't know Councilwoman Toles at the time, but I did know Ms. Whipple, and I knew it wasn't her.
Okay. So you could identify, you knew that it was Ms. Tolles' voice? All right, so were you able to discuss this, I think it was Meet the Mayor event with Mayor Lou? And what did y'all talk about?
Well, I promoted the event. It was, as I said, an opportunity for chamber members to come to meet the newly elected mayors of the county. And it also, I believe, coincided with a field representative from Representative Austin Scott's office. He held a series, or he had some time available before that event, and at the depot where folks could come in and convey to him whatever concerns they had on the federal level that he'd be able to help with.
And after you talked about this event, did the mayor agree to come?
I don't recall if she ever said I will be there. We discussed it.
What
She
about-
gave me permission to use the depot.
Okay. What about the other council members? Did they ask any questions or agree to come to the event?
I don't recall if they asked any questions. I know that Mr. Smallwood greeted me because we've known each other for a long time, and I don't recall anything agreed on.
But you said that the mayor granted you permission to use the depot for that event. What happened next?
Well, we ended the phone call, and I heard some noise, but then the mayor kept talking, so I thought she was still talking to me, so I asked her if I said, are you there, or is there something else, or something along those lines? And she kept talking, and I stayed on the phone and listened.
What kind of things was she saying?
I don't remember in which order the three things that I heard were discussed. But one was a conversation with Mr. Smallwood about, I think Mr. Smallwood and Mr. Reese about the legal representation of the county. And something to the effect of making a change or firing the city attorney. And I remember Mr. Smallwood said that he had a problem with the city attorney also representing a client on the Ball Line Freeway with I guess a condemnation case or something. I don't know what case it was.
clarify, I think you said that they were discussing legal representation of the county in the city. Problem. I believe the city attorney at that time was, Mr. Boone. Did they discuss Mr. Boone specifically?
I don't think they used to.
And you said they discussed other things. Would you describe these things as city business?
Yeah, they, next thing they discussed was, Spence Basinger. That was, Terry Reeves, mentioned something about Spence, and Mayor Lou said that she was not going to stop anything that was already in the works with Spence. That she wasn't going to, I think that her terminology was something along the lines of, I'm not gonna stand in the way of anything that's already in the works.
And what was that last thing that they talked about? Do you recall?
Chief Mike Hall.
What, do you know what they talked about with Mr. Hall? Chief Hall?
I don't remember, again, the specific terminology, but it was about, getting rid of Paul. And, Ms. Tolles said that he was at the Gordon Police Department now. She had ridden by on her way. That's what she said.
Do you recall at that time what Councilwoman Tolles did on the council in terms of the committees?
No, I didn't know anything about committee assignments at the time, and the event was also to acquaint myself with elected officials.
All right. Did they sound friendly about their discussion about Chief Hall? Did they speak of him in a, we'll say, positive manner?
I don't recall there being I mean, I can't imagine speaking about letting somebody go being in a positive manner, but, I don't recall that there was any vitriol or anything like that.
Mr. Jackson, how long was this total conversation?
Just maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
And just to clarify, that's as long as you heard. It presumably could have gone on longer.
Sure.
But you heard it for 4 or 5 minutes. All right. And just to clarify, you said this was February 4th, 2014. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. No more questions at this time.
Basically, he's an engineer. That's all.
Water, I made that one right here, I got cut, I guess this is, we go take everything, it's been fresh. They can do it.
You testified in this case once before, is that right?
So, yes,
Yeah.
witnesses in conversation, we do, we shake our head, nod our head, but on a transcript, when she typed this up, hard to distinguish, and then there's disagreement over what the witness never said, so yes or no, people out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I wanna make sure I got all this down, like it happened. You called the mayor to ask about using the depot one,
I called City Hall and they transferred me to that.
they transferred you to the mayor, you ended up on a conversation with the mayor. She said that she was in meeting with some city council people. And that was the end of your business with the mayor. She granted your request, said you could use the depot. And apparently the phone didn't hang up. and you sat there listening to someone else's conversation.
Yes, sir, I thought that she was continuing to talk to me, and then when I realized she wasn't, I stayed on the phone and listened.
You stayed on the phone and listened to somebody, knowing that they didn't know that you were on the phone.
Yes, sir.
And you did that for about 10 minutes.
Probably closer to 5, but somewhere in the neighborhood, several minutes.
Well, when you took
What's on your mind today?
I'm a bit hot. It's a very beautiful afternoon. Hope it will be cooler later on. But I'm looking forward to have a nice afternoon.
All right, all
My
right.
wife, and I hope she will have other smiles at the end of the day.
All right, all right. And what's your name?
My name, Mr. Lou.
I'd like to hear from my mother, George. The friend.
Would you like to say anything?
Well, I can't say this. She's my daughter, and as a mother, and how many mothers could stand up and, like I said, and just see how the people are ridiculing her? No, I don't like it. I don't like it not damn bit.
What the hell?
What happened? What man? Oh, I really hit.
Excuse me.
Oh, Lord. She hit me, Mike.
You all right, Miss Key?
No, I ain't. I hit you. I did? She did. I knocked the camera out of his hand and he fell to the ground and started hollering.
I saw you.
No, she was standing there.
I asked him to take the camera. I told him he was violating my privacy.
I saw you hit him.
I hit the camera.
I saw you
Don't
hit
start
him.
it, Eddie Hester. I hit the camera.
Ma'am.
Come on, let's go home.
I'm going to.
No, ma'am. You're not.
No, let's open the camera.
You're not
and
going
see what the camera
anywhere.
says. Let's see what the camera says.
I saw you hit him.
Let's see what the camera says.
I don't care what the
Let's
camera
see
says.
what the camera
I
says.
saw you hit him.
I demand to see what the camera says.
Ma'am,
He
you're
had
gonna
a
have to
camera
calm
in my
down.
face. I knocked the camera out of his hand. He jumped down on the ground.
Ma'am,
Andy Hester
you're
here
gonna have
started
to calm
hollering that I
down.
did something wrong. I
You're
didn't
gonna have
touch
to calm
his face.
down.
I did not touch his face.
I don't
hit his
care.
hand. I hit his hand. Let's see what the camera says. He's got it there. It's the evidence.
Mr. Keith, you want me to call an ambulance?
Pull the camera up here.
Sir? Ma'am,
the
I'm
camera
gonna ask you to stand by that pole and you
Pull
going
the
to jail
camera up
tonight. Now you stand right there and you be quiet. Now I'm
the
tired of this.
He said he wanted an ambulance.
Mr. Keith, do you want an ambulance?
I hit the camera out of his hand. He hit the ground and started
You want to try to sit up? Watch your leg.
She hit me. She hit me. She hit me.
Ma'am, I'm going to tell you to be quiet.
I'm asking what's on the camera.
Ma'am, if you open your mouth one more time, you are going to jail now.
And the
Now,
county will
please
support me.
be quiet. Please, let me get this situation diffused. Thank you.
What'd you hit, buddy? Shove me back and come on, sit down. Hurt my neck. Oh, come
You want to sit down inside, Mr. Key?
come on, sit down. I want to press charges on her, right? Come on, sit down. Come on, sit down. I want to press charges. I didn't do it. I know. I want to press charges right now, Mike. Who did it? She assaulted me. Who was out there?
What's your middle name? What's your middle name?
You know my first and last, don't you?
Catherine. What is your middle name?
E.
E what? E for what?
Ellen.
Ellen?
Mm-hmm.
Wells is W-E-L-L-S?
Mm-hmm. Who's that guy?
What's your date of birth?
5/26/51, and what's his name? This is the second time he's done something like that to me.
And what's your address, Miss Wells?
109 Elam.
What's your phone number, Miss Wells?
628-1121.
Ma'am?
1121.
628?
All right, I'm gonna.
What's your social security number?
Do you need it?
Yes, ma'am.
316 54 94 9478.
Y'all.
316-54.
9478.
Now you tell me exactly what happened when you walked out the
When
door.
I come around, I said something to somebody. They said, you're being filmed behind you. I turned around. I asked him to shut off the camera. And I told him he was violating my privacy. He said he wouldn't have to shut it off. When he did, that's when I knocked it out of his hand. I did not touch his physical body. I knocked that camera out of his hand.
Okay.
And therefore, I would
Miss
like
Wade.
to, if he's going to file charges against me, I will file charges against him for violating my privacy
Miss Wells,
and private space.
Miss Wells, you realize when you're in a public place, you can be filmed at any time.
Yep, you be filmed anywhere as long as you're in public.
It's not against the law for somebody to film you when you're in a
Is it
public
against the law
place.
for me to knock the camera out of his hand, or
Yes,
for him to
Yes, ma'am. It's called simple battery.
knock the camera out of his
Yes,
hand?
ma'am.
All right, then write me up.
Newspaper reporters get their cameras knocked out of their hands.
Yes,
that's what
ma'am.
they charge them, charge them
But it's not against the law
Mm-hmm.
for somebody to film you in public.
Okay.
So, please let me try to figure out what is going on the other end of
This
this.
is the second time this gentleman has come out and said or done something to me when I've done nothing to him. This is the second time this has occurred.
Did
Now,
you
this, I
report
think
that? Did
this
you
is-
report that to us?
No, I didn't. There
Okay.
were 3 times in one night when I went to go across the street, people jumped on me. That was on August 18th.
I understand.
And this is only the 3rd time I've been here in several months. Right there.
Right there. He was.
But-
I can tell you what happened. Y'all need to be trampling. Y'all stand back. Excuse me, Sean.
He's
He
got
came
his
right
video
here
camera.
with his video camera. She was coming out. I had to say, excuse me. Excuse me. He was holding the camera steadily on her. Standing right here would not even allow me to come through. I had to go and holler. Excuse me, Roy.
And this is what happened.
If this is
Tommy, can you help me clear this? Everybody just needs to go so I can get it squared away. Lee, can you help me clear this? Everybody needs to go.
Come on, come on up and over there, because you weren't there with the ham. Come on. Oh, you were. Oh, I know you there.
Film it down inside the hallway.
You stay right there.
Everybody in there's going.
Somebody
Okay.
got his camera.
Who got the camera? You had the camera in your hand.
Yeah. Somebody's got it, it says.
You didn't put it back in your pocket?
I ain't got it in there. Damn,
thing shit hit me. Did you see it?
Yes.
God dog. I don't know where it
To investigate that type of stuff.
He's got his camera.
All right.
Well, I would probably say that to one of my children.
The meetings are now adjourned, you know. Y'all
Yeah.
He's got it.
Y'all free to go.
He had it in his hand.
It was in his
He had
hand.
it in his hand.
He sure did when he got up.
It was right there. I had it in my hand. I handed it to him.
Yes, he did.
Maybe I put it in my pocket. I
And
got
he's
it.
got it. All right.
Miss Esther, can you please, you know, Mr. Conrad, can y'all please give us a little space? The meeting's adjourned. We're going to try to get on with this business right here.
They see anything? Need them here?
No, they got to go. Everybody's got to go.
Okay, I'm gone.
Thank you for your help.
You welcome,
Thank you.
man.
All I did was back in that camera.
I understand.
His hand was the tips of my finger.
I understand.
I didn't hit him.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know who this man is.
You got cables and all for it at the house.
It come with one little old tiny cable.
But do you mind if we take this right here and
Spell your last name for me, Miss Key.
G.R.A.N.A.D.E.
Oh, just step out here a minute.
Now see,
What's
they're
your-
gonna try to make it
I'm gonna
mine.
let you hold
Yeah.
that. Excuse me, Tom.
What's your date of birth, Mr. Key?
3/13/59.
Address?
The street address is 108 Boxside Street, and the mailing is P.O. Box 707. Y'all gonna press charges here?
Telephone number, Mr. Key?
It's 628-2772. I don't wanna press charges. That's assault.
Well, tell me exactly what happened when you walked out the door.
I had my camera in my hand, and she stopped and said, "You get the camera out of my face." I ain't got it in your face. And that's when she hit me, scratched me across the face, shoved me back, and hit my hand, hit the ground. Right
What she hit you?
It's her hands. I reckon that's a fingernail scratched me right across my hand.
Okay.
So you was recording when that happened?
I had my camera on.
Yeah, y'all go ahead and talk to him. Where did
I sit with her. Make sure she all right.
Mayor,
Don't leave her alone.
what did you say you said it? What you said you saw it?
Yes, I was standing right there at that door,
Yes,
waiting
ma'am.
on Sergeant Williams. As a matter of fact, I didn't go far from the door. I called Sergeant Williams. Sergeant.
I saw you.
I was standing right there in the
Yes,
center of the
ma'am.
door. She was talking to me. He walked up with his camera, walking up to her. And she said, "Get back, I'm not talking to you." And he kept persisting. And then he pretended like she hit him. The woman is already weak. She has open heart surgery and in bad shape. And for him to do her like that.
I'd like to hear from my mother, George. The friend.
Would you like to say anything?
Well, I can't say this. She's my daughter. And as a mother, and how many mothers could stand up, and like I said, and just see how the people are ridiculing her? No, I don't like it. I don't like it, not damn bit.